What is happening out there, Roto Scouts baseball fans? Been a minute since I got to say that. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you guys enjoyed the All-Star break. Pretty solid All-Star game, I thought. Home Run Derby was all right. Weird with the Home Run Derby, though. A lot of people talking about it with just, the way they've got it set up. You don't get to actually sit there and kind of just watch the home runs. It's just bang, next pitch with that clock going. I kind of prefer the old version. I know that you could get somewhere it got really dragged out with guys just clocking, 45 home runs or whatever. But I think there's a better way. Maybe it is the just X number of outs, X number of actual just pitches. You get 30 pitches and 15 outs or whatever. I think they need to take the clock off it. Yeah, Keith Vape is pointing out the Schwarber swings at the end of the actual game, the swing off at the end of the game. Yeah, gosh, talk about the right guy to have in that moment. That is a perfect spot to land Kyle Schwarber. Didn't like what Booney did with the AL's lineup, but they had a lot of guys who had already left the ballpark apparently, and you can only do so much. But I tend to come down on the side of I don't like things that give us less baseball, right? I hate the automatic runner and extra innings that they do in the regular season and everything. I think for the All-Star game and only for the All-Star game, that's actually a pretty cool solution rather than going to extra innings, just saying, hey, swing off, let's do it home run style. I think that's a fun way to do it. It's not a baseball pure, kind of a way. I would never, ever want to see that land in the regular season. But for the All-Star game, it's fun. So I was into that. Yeah, hopefully you guys had a good break. Took a couple days there, just some quiet time. Got out to see Superman. That was about it, really. Didn't do all that much. Hung out with my mom. Had some lunch the other day. Otherwise, a couple quiet days here. Was looking to see if we could find any way to pick off value. We did have All-Star game projections and everything, but just wasn't all that much going on. Quiet couple of days, at least in this side of life. Interesting couple of days in other parts of life. Anyway, big 11 gamer to dive into here. I've already burnt a few minutes up top. I've already burnt a few minutes by starting a couple minutes late. So let's dive into it. As Monty says in the chat, should have let's go. Sorry, I was reading the wrong comment. Strange slate out of the break, not to have multiple elite pitchers on the mound. Happy weekend. Yeah, you do. If you think it through, you did have a lot of the higher end pitchers that were actually on the All-Star team and, maybe threw an inning, did some traveling, et cetera, et cetera. So it makes sense we're a spot or two down some of these rotations. Somebody was asking in Discord as well, I think it was Kevin, about do we have any concerns about like rest from the break and everything? And, keep in mind, we're talking about a 4-day break. So a lot of these guys are coming back on or about their regular turn in the rotation. So I have no concerns about depth of start outside of the guys who are, just still working their ways back and everything. But I think we're fine otherwise. But let's get into this thing. 8 games here. Good to see you, buddy. Pink hand wave back at you. Keith Vape is here. Cujo's here as usual. Monty's here. Some more people hanging out. Haven't said hi in the chat yet, but welcome. Good to see you as well. Hit the like button for me as we get started. Hit the subscribe if you've never done it before. Good way to start the second half. Just hit that subscribe button. It actually really does help. And we are trying our damnedest to get that thing over 1,000. We need like 25 more people. Tell your friends. I'm confident that among the 10 people here, we could round up 15 other people who have not yet subscribed to this channel and just have them click on that. Would be helpful. But let's dive in. So we do have one premium ace, I would say, who is, I expect, full start here from Spencer Strider, top of the board against the free swinging Yankees. Obviously, it's a fairly high danger spot. There's also weather in that one to be a little concerned about. Strider at 10-2 on FanDuel. I was disappointed I couldn't quite reach him in my placeholder lineup there. 9,000 on DraftKings. Feels like a little bit of a bargain, especially when number 2 is Seth Lugo. Yeah, he's facing the Marlins, but 300 more for Seth Lugo against the Marlins than Spencer Strider with his ridiculous upside. I think that's kind of a mistake. You've got Glasnow. I don't know what we're getting out of Glasnow beyond. I think we've got 5 in our pocket pretty easy here. 6 beyond 6 is really dicey, working his way back here, but 8,000 is a pretty terrific price for Tyler Glasnow. We'll get into the rest of the board in just a second. Willie K, I agree with you. Keith, I appreciate that, buddy. Yeah, invite those guys over. Very appreciated. Anybody you could spread the word to, really do appreciate it. But I do think those are three very competent options up at the top of the pitching board. And then you've got some interesting DK SP2s. You've got a little group of mid-range type SP1 options on the FanDuel slate. And it cuts off. It's not a bad cut line because all of Charlie Morton, Justin Verlander, even Quentin Priester against the Dodgers on the right day. Sandy, maybe against the Royals before we get super thin down toward the bottom. But I really feel like if I had to say a safe cut line, it would probably be up in this territory. I have a lot of problems calling Taj Bradley or Brandon Pfaadt safe the way they've been pitching this year. Sean Manaea not fully stretched out. Reese Olson also just coming back. So you could argue that it's there as far as the realistic options. So it is kind of a high-end, high cut line today, depending on what we're looking for. Let's get into the run board here real quick. 8.5 to start off with the Giants at Toronto. 391 implied total for the Giants. They're going up against Chris Bassett. And then it is Justin Verlander on the hill for the Giants. The only reason I mentioned him as being a potential option is he's very cheap down toward the bottom of the lineup. But you can see Blue Jays drawing a 4.68 implied total against their fairly low strikeout. And he just hasn't been Justin Verlander by and large this season. So challenging spot there. The Reds, the Mets, 8-run total in that one. It's Nick Lodolo. It's Sean Manaea. I'll take some Mets bats against Lodolo, but it wouldn't stun me if he had at least an effective day. A 6 to 8 strikeout kind of performance, 3 earned runs, kind of like he did two starts ago against Philly. I could see that being in the cards, and on a day like today, that could end up usable. But I'm more inclined to use some Mets bats against their draw, nearly a 4.4 implied total. Reds just a 3.69 against Sean Manaea. Manaea went 3 1/3 as the piggyback the other day, as the bulk reliever the other day. Had been stretching out a little bit in the minors as well. 3 innings, 3 2/3 innings. That was with a gap after June start in mid-June, June 19th. He went 5 1/3, but then was out for a minute. So I think we're looking at 5 and 5 only for Sean Manaea. Keeps him on the board, but maybe one of those plays there's not a ton of ceiling on. The A's with JP Sears looking like a target for some Guardians bats. They're coming in at a 4.23 implied total. That said, it's a not incredibly high-end lineup. There are pieces and parts that we can work with there, but I don't love it. Sears is just very, very gettable. Every now and again, he can break off a pretty good start. 2 of his last 3 have been good, and the third one wasn't bad. It was just 3 earned runs against Atlanta, but he struck out 6. A lot of home run, went 5 innings. The other 2 starts prior to that against the Giants and against the Yankees, shut them both out over 6 innings against the Giants, 5 2/3 against the Yanks, 6 strikeouts, 4 strikeouts. Been pretty effective in those recent starts, but we know what the downside looks like with JP Sears for sure. So some Guardians bats may be in play. I'm going to go ahead and flat disagree with Vegas on this 3.86 implied total for the Athletics. That should be a half a run higher. Slate Cicconi's been pitching well. I'll give him that much, but he allows a lot of premium contact. He allows a lot of power. And if there's one thing those Athletics have, it is premium power upside. They're showing a bunch of home run upside. Maybe it amounts to 4 or 5 runs. Maybe it's not the slate breaking spot of the day DFS wise, but if I had to pick one where I am seeing some strong disagreement with what this run board looks like, it would probably be those Athletics. So something to keep in mind as you evaluate. KC against the Marlins, as mentioned, Seth Lugo coming up near the top of the board for a big price tag, but he's facing the Marlins. They're a frisky team. They've got some decent bats. They've got some competence, but Lugo's a quality pitcher. He pitches deep into ball games. Not the biggest strikeout guy in the world, but he is on a run, at least 7 strikeouts in 4 of his last 5 starts. What I tend to go to Lugo with, though, is for run limitation over an extended start, 6-7 innings typically in the cards for a Seth Lugo play. And then in Sandy Alcantara, you can get 6 out of Sandy. The quality of those 6 is going to be very questionable. It is a low strikeout Royals opponent. So if we had somebody more targetable for Ks, I might be a little bit more interested in Sandy. Right now, I think it's just a day where Sandy's just cheap. But he does have them checked down under a 4-run implied total. So something to work with there. 3.69 on the other side for Miami. 2 teams in the 4s. You've got Ian the Hammer Hamilton opening for the Yankees. I would expect 2, maybe 3 out of Hamilton coming out of the break. He went 2 in 2 outings, 2 appearances ago. That was on the 12th. Then on the 13th, he went 2/3 of an inning. He's a pure reliever, but he has gone 2 multiple times this season. So I think 3 is probably there for him. I gave him 2.5, split the difference. Either way, I don't think he's going to be much of a factor on this slate. Looking the other way, Spencer Strider on the bump, but you can see the Yankees are above a 4 implied total, 4.15. Really only Aaron Judge showing the typical power upside. I think he's the only guy in the projected lineup for the Yanks that is over the magic number in the home run model, but you've obviously got some threatening bats in that Yankees lineup. Same deal on the other side with the Braves. I'm kind of mystified by that 4.05 implied total for them as well. A lot of quality bats on that team. Charlie Morton going for the Orioles against the Rays. 4.73 implied total for the Rays against Charlie. Charlie's been very, very up and down this season, but when he's good, he's been very good. He's been not peak, but he's been, reminiscent of the old Charlie Morton. It's just the downside of that has been kind of problematic in some spots. Most of that really did come in the first month and a half of the season. And since then, he's really only... Since the start of May, in fact, he's given up 4 earned runs only once. Every other start, fewer than 4 earned runs, and I'll go you one better. He's given up 3 earned runs only twice. So that's not a bad run. I think he's at least on the board here against a gettable enough Rays team. I just don't like this ballpark at all as far as rostering pitchers in it. Same thing applies to the guy on the other side. Taj Bradley against a gettable enough Orioles team, but one that has some threatening bats, one that's been underperforming all season. 4.37 implied total in this ballpark. And Taj can be very up and down himself. Low strikeout lately as well. So kind of problematic spot for pitching on that one. I lean bats, and between the two pitchers, I think I would probably go Charlie over Taj. Tigers and the Rangers, fast forward to an hour from now where I'm saying, so I definitely want Taj Bradley over Charlie Morton because I don't remember what I just said. Reese Olson on the bump for the Tigers, his third start back. 4 1/3, 5 innings in the first 2. I would expect 5 and change if all things are going well. Gettable enough opponent with the Rangers, but 8.5 run total for the game, fairly even up. 4.27 on the Tiger side, 4.33 implied on the Rangers side. I would use Olson at least a little bit. I think he's on the board here, but I would probably also counter that with some Rangers bats in other lineups. And then Patrick Corbin has not been bad this season. Got to give it to him, but the power's been creeping back in around the edges a lot lately. He's given up at least 3 earned runs in 3 of his last 5 starts, just 2 earned runs in the other 2. Moderate strikeouts, targetable for power, and I'm seeing a lot to like with that Detroit lineup. I'm not going to lie. 4.27 implied total on their side works for me. The Twins, the Rockies, it's Coors Field. The Twins are drawing a 6.21 implied total. You could just go straight there. They're very easy to use. They're also not all that priced up, at least among like the common man type bats in that lineup. A lot of usable pieces and parts on that side going up against Kyle Freeland. And then it's Chris Paddock on the mound for the Twins. If you're inclined to take shots against the Rockies when they're at home, maybe a share or 2, but Paddock hasn't been pitching particularly well through most of the season. There is a little bit of lingering upside, but the Rockies land in the top half of the stacks board. They're pulling a 4.92 implied total, which is one of the higher marks on the entire slate, or the third highest mark behind the Dodgers. So we probably lean bats at Coors Field. No real revelation there. Cards and the D-backs, 9 run total in that one. 4.33 implied total for the Cards. 4.78 implied total for the Diamondbacks. Definitely a spot we can look to some bats. Brandon Pfaadt is capable enough of beating that St. Louis team, and I'll go to the other side of it and say that Andre Pallante at least capable of keeping that Diamondbacks team in check. Last time out, flat bed. 7 earned runs, 1 strikeout, 1 walk, 2 home runs allowed to the Nationals. Start before that, 1 hitter against the Pirates at Pittsburgh. Obviously, that's a terrible Pirates team. 3 strikeouts, 2 walks. That's entirely emblematic of his typical upside start. You're not going to get a lot of Ks out of Pallante, but what you do get is the ability to typically, anyway, outside of that 2 home run game, typically keeps the ball in the yard, is decent at going 6-7 innings, is decent at keeping runs in check. So maybe that plays a little bit as a cheap option on kind of a short pitching slate. And then Pfaadt is just bumpy. A pretty good 8-inning start in his last one before the break against the Padres. Went 8, 4 strikeouts, no walks. Gave up a homer, but only 2 earned runs, only 4 hits. 4 earned runs in 6 innings the start before that, 2 over 5 innings against Miami the start before that one, and some bumpy ones as you go down over those weeks. But he has at least kind of recovered seemingly from the 8-run disaster where he got no outs, the 6-run follow-up to that over 3 innings. It's kind of at least rounding back into form, hopefully, with Brandon Pfaadt here. One of the cheaper go-to pitchers, I think, of the day, at least on the FanDuel slate. I forget what he's priced at on the DraftKings board, but we'll get back to it in a second. Brandon Walter going up against the Mariners. It's a dangerous Mariners team, but there are strikeouts there. There are bad days for that Mariners lineup where they're just free swinging nature ends up winning out. And Brandon Walter's pitching pretty well as far as finding some strikeouts. He's pitching pretty well outside of one performance. Against the Angels, he allowed 7 back on June 21st. Other than that, had a 5-run game at Coors Field, but we're forgiving that one as well. Outside of Coors Field and the game against the Angels, the other 5 starts, no more than 2 runs allowed, handful of strikeouts in every game. I like the upside there for the price. If he was higher priced, it would be a little bit more challenging. Luis Castillo, this form of Luis Castillo, not ideal to throw at the Astros, but on this slate, for sure, he's definitely an asset. 3.59 implied total for Houston tells part of that story. Castillo's got upside still. He's found it a few times this season. At worst, you can typically rely on 6 innings, if not more, out of Luis Castillo. And then we round things off with Quinn Priester, who was pitching fairly well for a little stretch there. Ran into 4 earned runs against Miami over 4 2/3, 4 strikeouts, 2 walks, 2 home runs allowed, 2 starts back, and then followed that one up with 6 okay innings against the Nats. 2 earned runs on a homer, 4 hits, 5 strikeouts, 2 walks. It's all right. It's just that it's the Dodgers. I would really probably lean away from the Priester spot, but it wouldn't stun me if he had at least a okay, competent type day. And then Tyler Glasnow, a lot of upside, went 5 in the game against this same Brewers team the last time out. That was at Milwaukee. 5 strikeouts, 3 walks, allowed 1 unearned run on 2 hits, faced 20 batters over that stretch. I think we're looking at probably 5 and change would be the upside start from Glasnow today. If we get a 6th complete inning, so be it. That would be tremendous. If you get that, he's probably pitching pretty well, probably has 7-8 strikeouts in his pocket as well. So he's on the board for sure. Maybe a little bit shorter, maybe a little bit lower ceiling than like the Striders of the world, but not that dissimilar at this point. And you can see that right there. And again, this is a killer option. 8,000 for Tyler Glasnow against that Milwaukee team, when I can at least rely on 5 innings, if not more. Absolutely. There's Walter right there. And I'll tell you what, 77 on DraftKings definitely works. 85 on FanDuel. Like I said, it's a tight mid-range today. I don't know that you've got a good, cheap single starter option on FanDuel. Like all these guys in the 8s, I think it would have been fair to put like Brandon Pfaadt at 78, Charlie Morton maybe at 79, give us a couple $100 more of separation from those guys to like some of these guys. Verlander's challenging. Sandy's challenging. Paddock at Colorado, Corbin. There's some usable stuff here, but it's not good. It's not likely. And even for, low owned game theory, leverage type reasons, really, really challenging in that group on FanDuel. You could probably dabble a little bit more in the 6s with some of those guys on DraftKings, just the way things come together, but you've got lower prices overall on a lot of these options going through the board. Ciccone projects out pretty well going up against Oakland, or against the Athletics rather. It's just the challenge of that power. One swing could ruin your day at 8,900 with Slate Ciccone on the FanDuel slate. At 78, maybe it's 2 swings, right? But there's a lot of downside there. There's also enough upside to play him, though. Projects out pretty well and does have ceiling. He's been finding the strikeout form. Bassett against the Giants at home, 87-81. Effective enough. Probably among that top group of pitchers, the lowest end guy, as the projections would indicate. But I like him there. I think those are correct prices for Chris Bassett. And he's got upside. He's got ceiling on the right day. He's also a little bit roller coastery. But overall, I think that's a heavy air quotes, safe option. Lodolo against the Mets, I'm challenged to spend 92 on him. 84 probably puts him in the mid-board type mix on DraftKings. Luis Castillo at 88, 85 is playable back and forth, but not ideally priced. Olsen, depends on what the innings are going to look like. 83, 76, though, very affordable there against a scuffling Rangers team. Manaea is another short potential start. Not a ton of ceiling on your 8,800 there. 7,000 on DraftKings, just easy to play. 88 on FanDuel when we're not probably getting a shot at 6. Really, really tough. A lot of downside from the ballpark. Some downside from the opposing lineup. The O's are showing a little bit of power upside against Bradley here. He can find form and pitch very well, but we've tended to land on the other side going against Taj a lot this season. 7,200 on DraftKings, though, easy to play. 85 on FanDuel. Again, this is a very tight midboard on the FanDuel slate. Fott, if he finds the competent day, he's fine. 8,300, 7,700, not mispriced for essentially what he's been all season long. He does have strikeout upside. The Cards, not the highest strikeout team in the world. That said, it's kind of a mid-league lineup at best. So right there, you could definitely succeed with Fott today. I do think that Charlie is interesting from the dead center, or we're a little bit below dead center of the board here. But 8,275, again, just with the rounding into form that he's done as the season has gone on, I think we can get there just on what he's currently been doing in the average start. And then Tampa Bay can definitely push some strikeout toward him. Some dangerous lefties. There's some power in that lineup. There's Junior Caminero in that lineup. Chandler Simpson up at the top. Get on base 3 times. Steal a couple bags. Just create havoc there. Dangerous spot, but playable. 8,275. Verlander's challenging at 7,765. Priester, as mentioned, against the Dodgers, a little tough as far as the matchup goes, but he's shown enough stuff this season to believe that he could succeed in that spot. It's just, you're not exactly generously priced at 82 or 79 across sites. I think they probably could have dipped him into the lower 7s on DraftKings for this matchup. I wouldn't say into the 6s, but they could have done you a favor there. Low strikeout for Sandy to face, and he's just not been on form mostly this season. Of course, field start. I'm seeing the upside for the Tigers against Patrick Corbin, but if you're looking all the way down to the bottom of the board, that's probably your most playable guy in, let's say, the Verlander or the Priester down group. It probably is Patty Corbin, unfortunately. I'm almost certainly going to exclusively target him with bats instead. JP Sears against Cleveland, 81-62, maybe a few darts at 62 on DraftKings. That's kind of a big price disparity on JP Sears. I can agree with him being a value dart. I don't think I can agree with him being an $8,100 just top line starter on FanDuel. Palante, as mentioned, maybe he checks the power, goes 7 innings of fairly clean ball, but you're not getting a ton of strikeout upside there. Depends on how you're using him. He's probably a guy who's more playable on FanDuel actually at 78, and you're just hoping for a quality start with 4 strikeouts. On DraftKings at 77, that doesn't land as well against all of these options. That just puts him in the price mix with all those guys, and there's not similar ceiling. Freeland's a no. Hamilton's not going to give you enough. Hit the like, hit the subscribe as we dive into the first game here. Giants lineup is in. Beautiful. Nicely timed. Oh, keeps a week into into his quitting. Must be challenging, buddy. Feel for you. Just taking a break or what? Monty saying, interesting to see if Glasnow can find his control. He was missing badly last outing, had no command of his curveball. Yeah, I mean, that's just, for one, it can come and go start to start for anybody a little bit. But yeah, just rounding back into form, there's obviously going to be some challenge there. And I think all of that is just kind of baked into the visible downside on Glasnow there that comes with the potential of a short start. So definitely a little bit of, of challenge there. But again, if it wasn't for that, I think he'd be projected out decent amount above this, handful of points above this. So I think that's accounted for at least fairly well in what we're getting out of the model today. Back to the top of this thing. Just real quick, I mentioned a little bit of weather in the Atlanta area for the Yankees game. Roth has that yellow-green, but seems like it'll be all right. Tampa Bay, a little bit of rain in the area, but it seems like just the usual Florida routine. And then there is a little bit of rain in the Coors Field area, but that one also yellow-green seems okay. So Verlander, 65-77. He's coming in with nearly a 20% strikeout rate over 76 and 2/3, 4.70 ERA and a 4.54 xFIP. It's just, this is who he is now. Right? We're talking about a pitcher who's going to probably allow a few runs. He is finding some swinging strike. His stuff is still measuring out really well via Stuff Plus, but he's allowing 10.4% barrels. He's allowing a lot of premium contact, nearly 40% hard hits, 89.4 on the exit velo. It hasn't burnt him for home runs, but it's been costing him earned runs. It's been costing him too many opportunities. The 1.42 whip against just a 7.7% walk rate can indicate that as well. BABIP, we talk about BABIP a fair amount as far as, just where it comes into play, measuring, are you getting lucky, are you getting unlucky, et cetera, et cetera. But when everything's getting hit hard, it just matters less that his BABIP against this year is 316. That's obviously a very meaty batting average on balls in play against. But to put it in perspective, back in 2013, as a 30-year-old starter in Detroit, he allowed a 316 batting average on balls in play while pitching to a 3.46 ERA and a 3.67 xFIP. So the old version of Verlander could get through that a little bit better. It's just not working quite as well. This is a very playable price, even against the low strikeout, 15.8% for this confirmed version of the Blue Jays lineup, 18.4 last year. Even against them, at that price as an SP2 just value dart, fine, go for it. His stuff, again, this stuff is working fine. Maybe a little bit of downside as far as bad luck that has then cost him on one of those hard hit balls. Some of it his fault, some of it maybe a little bit less so. 77 on FanDuel. I just don't think we need it as much with some similarly priced kind of options. Bassett at 81-87, 22.4% Ks against a pretty low walk rate, 4.12 ERA against a 3.72 xFIP. Too many opportunities for him as well. And again, against a low walk rate, there's just a lot of guys on base against both these pitchers. And I think that's kind of reflected in these run totals. The Giants actually sub 4 implied total. That could be a quarter run higher to get them above a 4 run implied, because that's really who Chris Bassett is, right about 4 runs, which is indicated by this. Just a 7.5% barrel, 34.2% hard hits, 86.6 miles an hour of exit velo. Actually been pretty difficult to square up, hit the ball very hard against, managing home runs pretty effectively this year. Very much in play, 8,100, 8,700. There are some strikeouts in this Giants lineup, 23.1% for this confirmed version. You got a 93 plate appearance sample at 19.4 there for Dom Smith, who's not much of a threatening hitter anyway. If you just did that, you're at 23.6, a minor half-point uptick, but there are strikeouts here for Chris Bassett. So at 81, at 87, I prefer him on DK, of course, and he's more a cheap SP1 over there than he is an SP2, really. 87 on FanDuel is a little bit high for my liking, but I think it's playable. Look at the Giants' bats. Despite that 4-run implied total, or sub-4-run implied total, I think they're playable here. You've just got enough talent in this lineup for one thing. You've got good bats. And if people aren't going to good bats, I'll always at least consider guys like Rafi Devers, guys like Matt Chapman, Willie Adames against Chris Bassett. So there are usable pieces here. Yaz at 36-27 is a usable piece from the left side. 7.9% barrels down from 10.5 last year, 9.8% the year before. Is finding his hard hit still, though. Striking out a little bit less than the last 2 seasons while pushing walk up is appealing. He's getting on base at a 342 clip. That's why he's up in the leadoff role. 8 home runs, 6 stolen bases in an otherwise underwhelming season for power and for individual point creation. But he has those abilities. Just a 137 ISO. He's better than that for power. So you get a little upside, a little bit of visible ceiling toward power, and you get the strong correlated scoring option, 107 WRC plus. Elliot Ramos at just 39-32, 14 home runs for him on the season, just a 167 ISO in spite of a 10.7% barrel, 45.2% hard hit. He's a very playable piece against this pitcher. That is a decent upside spot at those prices. Rafi Devers at 44-35 is interesting. 17 home runs on the board for him. A 380 xWOB under the covers, a 133 WRC plus. All the premium contact that you could possibly want. Matty Chapman has a beautiful swing and a 9.5% barrel, 49.2% hard hit on the season, 12 home runs on the board, a 187 ISO, 123 WRC plus. Missed some time in there, but overall having a good year, and he comes in very cheap at 3,800 on DraftKings. Everybody in the Giants lineup is pretty affordable on DK. 44 for Rafi Devers is your most expensive price. Willie was kind of surging before the break. 12.6% barrels and 44.5% hard hits now. He's up to 220, 307, 373, just a 153 ISO still, but he's up to 12 home runs now. 325 xWOBA's at least normalized under the covers, gives us some encouragement for the second half. 94 WRC plus and climbing. It will turn into a not terrible season for Willie Adames if he just continues doing what he was doing for the 2 weeks before the break, the 3 weeks before the break. Young-Hoo Lee, light contact, decent hitter. 6 home runs, 6 stolen bases, 249, 317, 403. He's a little bit better than that. He's got a 324 xWOB under the covers and a 104 WRC plus. As a cheap, just another guy in the outfield option, he's fine. He's the least appealing out of the top 6 in this Giants lineup, though. And then you get to Casey Schmidt, Dom Smith, and Patty Bailey, and each one of those guys is at best a mix and match guy. Casey Schmidt does have a 115 WRC plus. He's hit 4 home runs and 135 chances, coming in with just a 144 ISO against that. That comes on 8.1% barrels, 46.5% hard hits. I would say he's probably the most playable there just because I've got plenty of experience to tell me that Dom Smith is not much of a bet. And Patty Bailey, maybe you get the occasional solid swing out of him, 6.6% barrel rate, but 203, 267, 297 is pretty weak over 250 plate appearances. On the Blue Jays side, Nathan Luke's off the top, 39.27. An okay 216 plate appearances. The 118 WRC plus is very appealing. The 335 xWOB is encouraging. 276, 371, 398 slash line is tremendous. Not much of an individual contributor, but he's a low strikeout, high walk guy who's going to set the table for the excellent bats that follow him. 371 on base, leading into a run of George Springer, Vladdy Guerrero, Bo Bichette, and Addison Barger. And I'll honestly throw Alejandro Kirk into that mix too. That is a very solid 5-man group behind Nathan Lukes here. All of a sudden, this Blue Jays lineup has gone from being super top heavy and not great to kind of deep and interesting because all of Joey Loperfido, Alejandro Kirk, Ernie Clement, maybe less so Will Wagner at the bottom there, but at least these 3 guys are very interesting. So this lineup is kind of stretched out and appealing now. Springer, 53-34, perfectly fine as far as the price goes. 16 homers, 11 steals, a 137 WRC plus against a good slash line, a 15% barrel rate. Vladdy at 13-3 and 52.9 in the premium contact numbers. Underwhelming power season so far, but the contact is there. Everything he needs to hit home runs and do his thing is very much there. You can see how it aligns with the last 2 seasons. Very low strikeout, very high walk. 277, 384, 434, a 130 WRC plus, a ridiculous 402 xWOB under the covers to support everything I'm saying about the potentially monster second half that he could have. He's got a dozen home runs right now. You could take that line and give it to anybody else, and if his name wasn't Vladdy Guerrero or somebody similar, you'd be saying, all right, that's a pretty good season so far. Bo Bichette, 282, 324, 443, a dozen home runs, 4 steals, a 112 WRC plus, pretty good season so far. Addison Barger, 14.4% barrels, 53.9% hard hits, arrived this season in a big, big way. 45-31 is fair. Third base and outfield eligible on both sites. 13 homers, a 245 team leading ISO, 125 WRC plus. Guy can hit. Addison Barger's for real. And then Kirk, 9.2% barrels, 54.8% hard hits on the season. He's slashing 303, 361, 408 with a 116 WRC plus, a 371 xWOBA to support that all of this has been real. 9.4% strikeouts and 8.5% walks. He doesn't strike out. He draws a fair amount of walks, hits the ball very squarely. Where you have to play catchers, he's 4,000. That's a really interesting spot. 28 on FanDuel. Loperfido, 27-23, not uninteresting. It's just 15 plate appearances this year, but he's got a home run on the board. He's been hitting the ball pretty effectively in that tiny sample. Last season, over 262, he wasn't all that effective. 4 home runs, 214, 264, 350. But he's got very strong minor league numbers to support the upside. He's a decent power bat, so I would expect him to at least get into the mix at those prices and be playable. Ernie Clement, good bat-on ball hitter, decent table setter, solid as a wraparound option if you're ignoring Will Wagner. You just use Ernie out of the 8 spot to bring him back up to the top here. Maybe you skip Luke's in that configuration and go through these guys. That said, especially like by comparison to the guys on the other side, not the cheapest group of hitters anymore in the world. I feel like they're slightly more affordable on FanDuel through that group, but it's close. If you went Ernie, Kirk, and then pick 3 would probably be 1, 2, 3 like that. 46 a piece on the nose for that 5-man is not bad. Definitely, playable. If you just start there, top down 5-man, 47.80 a piece. The interesting thing is, you really like, let's say we leave George Springer out. We'd take Luke's instead. Vladdy, Bichette, Kirk, and then Ernie as a 5-man. Down at 43.20, so I'm saving another $200 off of that average by going with Luke's and forgoing the Springer share. Take the correlated scorer and hope you get your big shot from one of these guys. You could also go like that in that configuration and bring it down to 4,300 a piece, 42.80. Not quite as affordable as they were, but it's a better lineup now than I think they were. I would say Blue Jays bats, Chris Bassett, Giants bats, Justin Verlander on DraftKings. That sounds like a good call, Keith. Definitely a easy thing to put down when you need to, right? Easier than a lot of other things in this world anyway. Devers needs to wake up. Yeah, for sure. Hasn't been great since arriving in San Fran, but we know what that talent is. We know that it'll come around. So not worried about it, but yeah, it would be nice if he actually starts delivering a little bit more. Sean Manaea, $7,000, 8,800 on FanDuel. Like I said, that is just a ludicrously high price for 5 innings of Sean Manaea on the FanDuel slate. Yeah, over that 3 1/3 that he pitched the other day, he came in with nearly a 50% strikeout rate. I'll give you the numbers. He came in and faced 15 hitters and struck out 7 of them. 1 earned run allowed on 5 hits over that same stretch, though. That was against Kansas City. If you're striking out 7 Royals in 3 1/3, you've obviously got some stuff. And Sean Manaea has always had decent strikeout stuff. There's nothing overly shocking about that performance. He went 3 2/3. He went 3 innings in the 2 most recent starts down in the minors. 5 1/3, but that was back in mid-June, and then took another 2-week break in between. So I'm expecting we're maxed out at 5. It's not that they're going to be overly protective of Sean Manaea's arm here. Like, if he's pitching great, hasn't thrown too many pitches, would they send him back out for a 6th? Sure. But the projectable start, I think, is 5 and 5 alone. And I think it, outside of his individual strikeout stuff, it does temper expectations as far as what that ceiling looks like. Fully believe in the projections, but it's probably a day where your median is also closer to your ceiling than normal. Lodolo on the other side at 84.92. Similar in that I don't really want to pay that FanDuel price for Nick Lodolo against the Mets. We're talking about a guy with a 21.9% strikeout rate. Yeah, just 5% walks. It's a tidy little strikeout to walk ratio, sure. 3.38 ERA, but a 3.88 xFIP, half a run higher. That's still a good xFIP, but it's a half a run higher, and it's approaching 4. 10.9% swinging strikes, but only a 25.9% CSW. That's a bad combination. Hasn't burnt him in walks or runners or opportunities or anything, but that's a unsightly combination of factors. 8.3% barrels, and then we get into some problems around the 42.2% hard hits, the 89.8 miles an hour of exit velo, 3.39% home runs allowed. Again, not tragic, but also not nothing. That is a substantial home run rate. And you're throwing him into a very talented Mets lineup that's got power, that's got the ability to draw some walks, that's got, for some of these guys anyway, the ability to keep strikeouts in check. The only real strikeout problem in this lineup right now is Ronnie Mauricio at 28.2% over 103 plate appearances. Everybody else is at least manageable mid-board strikeout rates. And like, you'll take 22.7 from Pete Alonso in exchange for the ludicrous power upside. Same deal with like Mark Vientos at 24.4. That's higher than you would want, and you need him to actually provide the power upside. Hasn't done that in the first half, but you take it because it's, for one, not completely egregious, and he gives you a lot of potential. Not a good matchup for Lodolo. Much more playable at 84 on DK. That said, though, it's kind of still an underwhelming, cheaper SP1 rather than like a good SP2 option. Don't love it. Reds bats against Manaea. I think we're playable here. Just a 369 implied total, though. I would probably lean toward Manaea outside of the innings. TJ Friedel off the top at 44.33, kind of priced up. He's been good. 276, 368, 406. Dynamite table setter for this team so far. A 117 WRC plus. The individual contributions are not absent. 9 home runs, 10 steals. He can give you a little bit, but he's probably not your first click. He's the guy that, rounds out that red stack. You want some Matt McClain in there. You want some Ellie in there if you're going to this team. McClain not having a good year. 10 home runs, 13 steals, a 210, 298, 337 line, but he's a much, much better hitter than that. 6.8% barrels, 40.7% hard hits. It's been a little bit difficult to spot, but the pricing is kind of telling the same story, I think, that I am about the belief in the talent. Those are high prices to pay for a guy who's done what he's done over these 357 plate appearances. Elliott, 57, 4,000, correctly priced, 18 homers, 25 steals. He's an absolute superstar. Austin Hayes at 47, 33. You're probably paying a little tax on Austin Hayes for what he's done already this season, over 192 chances at those prices. 287, 323, 517, a 230 ISO, 8 home runs in under 200 plate appearances. Very good 13.1% barrel, but just a 40% hard hit. Which one of those two numbers looks identical to the numbers from 2 years ago, and which one looks completely different? Exactly. Austin Hayes probably going to cool somewhat as the sample grows. He is a competent hitter, though, and what he definitely does have is approachable, 20 home run type power. I just don't love where he's priced right now. 38, 3,000 for Spencer Steer, though. You're getting a little discount there. 11 home runs on this season, mediocre slash line, just a 95 WRC plus, a really concerning 285 xWOBA, just a 5.4% barrel and 30.4% hard hits. These 11 home runs have been like the few times this season where he's remembered the kind of hitter that he actually can be. Does have a little bit of sneaky power there. Hit the ball quite a bit harder the last 2 seasons. Noelvi Marte coming off the suspension, 284, 337, 547, 6 homers, 5 steals. It's been a decent 104 plate appearances. I think he's playable at 42. I think he's playable at 34. But again, I don't love the prices, especially that FanDuel price. That feels a little aggressive. Tyler Stevenson's a catcher who can hit the ball hard, 11.2% barrels, 51.7% hard hits. It's only amounted to 6 home runs and a weak slash line, a 90 WRC plus, and a 298 xWOBA. But I'll just buy the contact where I have to roster catchers at least at 37. Jose Trevino is a lot lower end of a hitter, despite what the numbers this season might say. 277, 314, 445, 4 home runs, a 105 WRC plus. He's just not much of a bat. There's some happenstance in there in a small sample. Tyler Stevenson is the catcher that you want between the two. That said, among people who roster the low-owned Reds, Jose Trevino will be the lower-owned of the 2 catcher options. And then Santiago Espinal has a decent hit tool and hasn't really been displaying it over the 276 plate appearances so far this year. Between the third base options, you most certainly would prefer Noelvi Marte. With the Mets at a 439 implied total, especially if they end up a little bit less popular than they ought to be on just perceptions that, maybe Lodolo's really, really good, or people just using Lodolo, I would absolutely consider some high-end Mets. Frankie Lindor at 54.35 has 19 homers, 15 steals, a solid on base, a 123 WRC plus, the supportive 346 xWOBA that tells us we can climb from our 263, 34, 57 slash line and probably will. Vientos has gotten really cheap again, 2,900 on DraftKings. If Vientos goes on it'll be funny to watch. If he goes on a tear, let's say from now through the end of August, where's he going to be priced on DK in September? My money's on like below 4,000 still. 27 on FanDuel, perfectly fine. 6 home runs, weak slash line, just a 293 xWOBA. There's not much encouragement from anything he's done this year. 7.5% barrels is down by about half from last year. 48% hard hits is actually technically up. Last season, he hit 27 home runs in 450 chances at a 251 ISO. Kid can hit. He just needs to find it again. Juan Soto at 59.38 has 23 home runs and 11 steals, slashing 262, 396, 509 with a 247 ISO, creating runs 55% better than the average player by WRC+. Pete Alonso, 1 point ahead at 156. They're carrying 455 and 416 xWOBAs respectively. Those numbers are ludicrous. These are two fantastic players. Even at high prices, you just want these guys. 18% barrels, 20.4% barrels against a guy who, again, does allow a fair number of barrels, a lot of hard hits, a lot of exit velo. I want Soto and Alonso in the vast majority of my Met stacks. Basically, every Met stack you build should have one of those two guys, and most of them should have both. Nimmo at 45, 3,000, solid hitter. 259, 321, 463 is okay, but a 204 ISO is great. 18 home runs and 383 chances is great. 10 stolen bases even. 122 WRC plus. What's the problem with Brandon Nimmo? Love the price at 3,000 on FanDuel. That really helps. What can we do? It's going to be a high number here. 35.50 on FanDuel. Borderline playable for that direct four-man. You got to get cheap with your second stack and use like a mid-board type FanDuel pitcher, and we don't have a ton of those options today. But let's say we skip Frankie, which I hate doing. But if you just went with that four-man on FanDuel, 33.50, so 34 a piece, sounds pretty affordable. A little bit more affordable anyway. You could go this way, and this is one of the lineups where we'd be leaving out one of Soto and Pete. I'll take a slightly cheaper Soto and go like that, and I'm at 32.50 again. So the $3,300 to $3,500 range for your four-man from the Mets from the top end of the lineup without using any of the Mauricios, Jeff McNeils, Tyrone Taylors, and Luis Torrenzes of the world. Playable. On DraftKings, that full five-man is $4,760 a piece, so $4,800 a piece. That's a little challenging to reach. The price bump that they have on Nimmo is challenging here. $4,630 a piece for those three. I think on DraftKings, you probably extend for one of the even cheaper guys. You get Vientos in there. Let's see. What if we do that? And then I don't love Torrens as a wraparound. I'd just give it to Mauricio. Yeah, 45 a piece. It's similar. It's doable, but it's not ideally priced as far as getting there with very high-end other stuff. Mauricio, the highest strikeout rate in this lineup, slashing 237, 311, 409. A 104 WRC plus is interesting, though, over 103 chances. He's also hit 4 home runs, a 172 ISO, a little bit underwhelming, but the 4 home runs, kind of interesting. 7.8% barrels, 40.6% hard hits. A lot of growth still to be done, but he's cheap. He makes things work. 34.28 for Jeff McNeil, who's slashing 253, 341, 465, and has 9 home runs, a 126 WRC plus. It's been competent. He's been slightly different than his old put the ball in play self, even though that's, based on barrels and hard hits, still about what we're getting, but he's barreled a few more balls, 3.1 last year and 1.3% 2 years ago. It's up to 5.1 this year. Been on a little bit of a power stretch since late last season. Tyrone Taylor hasn't given us a ton this year. We've tried that route a few times as a oddball at the bottom of the lineup. Is just not working. Every now and then he can hit the ball decently hard as far as barrels go. This year he's just been missing. And then Luis Lorenz comes in with this ridiculous barrel and hard hit rate and nothing at all to show for it over nearly 200 plate appearances. It's weird. It's really difficult to do this on that kind of contact. But he is. Mix and match at the absolute best. Mets bats. Lodolo, Manaea, Reds bats. And Manaea is really only a DraftKings play. Yep. Absolutely right, Monty. Vientos definitely needs to get his act together. I believe. I really do think he's a competent hitter. And I wouldn't be shocked if he had a very strong August, September, and whatever's left of July. We say second half, but it's not really half. Athletics, 387 implied total. As stated, the general thesis of today's show is that the Athletics against Slate Ciccone are coming in at too low of an implied total on that Vegas board. It might not work out for a gargantuan game as far as the runs, because there are strikeouts in that Athletics lineup, and Ciccone comes in with a 24% strikeout rate himself. That's almost an exact match for the Athletics' 24% strikeout rate. But you've just got so much power through this lineup that's colliding with a 12.2% barrel, 48.1% hard hits, 91.6 miles an hour of exit velo, aggressively in all three categories ahead of our warning thresholds for power. 3.44 ERA, but a 3.89 xFIP that's substantially higher, a 1.27 whip. Stuff Plus doesn't like the arsenal really at all. Nearly 7 points below average, 6.5. Not bad as far as the walks go. Again, he's a competent pitcher. But I'm not just going to cross the A's off because they're at a sub-4 total. You got three guys in this lineup above the magic number for home run. You've got another three guys in the nines. So 6 of my 9 hitters are within a point in one direction or the other of our magic number or more. So yeah, I'm kind of interested in some A's bats here. It might not work out. Again, maybe it's a day where they get one home run out of these guys. It's a 3-run shot. Ciccone goes 6 and change, 3 runs allowed, but found 8 strikeouts. You'd probably rather have the Ciccone side of that outside of maybe a one-off of Kurtz or whoever hits the home run. But on the right day, where that becomes 3 home runs, 2 home runs against him, 1 against the bullpen, a couple extra guys on base for each of those. And he walks 7.8% of hitters. It's not nothing. These guys aren't the best in the world at taking walks, but you got 3 guys in the 10% walk range, another one at 9.4 for Tyler Soderstrom. You've got one of the best hit tools in baseball, full stop, with Jacob Wilson as far as just getting on via the base hit. It's a lot of challenge for Slade Ciccone here. Would play on either site, 78, 89, much more so over here. I think he's a good play here. I think he's a solid mixer that'll probably be a little bit low owned, maybe buy you a little bit of leverage upside on the FanDuel slate at that price. Would not stun me at all if he had an effective DFS start today. But also, by that same token, would not surprise me at all if the A's obliterate him. Everybody on the A's is reasonably priced. It's difficult to put like all those guys together, but that's similar to the Mets. It's a 43.60 price. But nobody individually is all that expensive. Kind of the same thing on FanDuel. Everybody at appropriate, usable prices. On the Guardian side, going up against JP Sears, as mentioned, he's capable of snapping off a good start from time to time, but a 4.79 ERA, a 4.71 xFIP. The thing to like best about him is a 19.1% strikeout rate, which is not particularly high against just a 5.8% walk. So that's an okay strikeout to walk ratio. It's not good. It's not approaching good, but it's okay. It's manageable. 8.3% swinging, 25.4% CSW, not all that manageable. Fair amount of barrels. Hard hits, exit velo are all, this is 0.1 under the threshold. That's 0.2 under our threshold. That's an aggressively high barrel rate, and it's amounted to 4.59% home runs allowed so far this season. So there's a lot of visible downside with JP Sears, obviously. I do think that leans toward some Guardians bats here. You've got some playable pieces up toward the top of the lineup. You've got some mixers, I'll say, at cheap prices down toward the bottom, but it gets a little bit light. This is a very top-heavy Guardians team. Starting out, though, with the A's lineup, the one that I think we actually want to get to here, despite what those totals are telling us. Lawrence Butler, 13 homers, 16 steals, a 109 WRC+, a 183 ISO that will climb if he just continues doing what he's doing. 9% barrels, 45.1% hard hits on the season. Had a little bit of a bumpy stretch in there fairly early on, but it's kind of normalized and just looking like the player that we saw through last season. Jacob Wilson slashing 332, 375, 462, chasing a batting title. 9 home runs, 5 steals, a 132 WRC+. Dude is just good. Still fairly priced on both sites. Doesn't give you a ton of like power upside or predictable power upside, but 9 homers in those chances with what else he does with the bat, it's a nice little bonus on the day that you catch it. And he is a reliable option to get to first base at least once. Kurtz, 46-36, 17 home runs in just 235 plate appearances, chasing the team leaders. Monster season, a 301 ISO. He's just immediately one of the best power bats in baseball on his promotion. 235 plate appearances ago. And remember with that, it took him a sec to find that first barrel. 46 is fine. 36 on FanDuel. He's the most expensive athletics hitter, but it's fine. Totally justifiable. 20 home runs on the board for Rooker at 45-33, slashing 279, 355, 505 with a 226 ISO. He's a monster power bat, and he just continues making stride after stride as far as improving the things that didn't used to work well in his game. Brent Rooker's done that as far as power over the first half, and he's sitting at a 21.6% strikeout rate, a 10.1% walk rate. If you had told me that that was Brent Rooker 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, I wouldn't have only called you crazy. I would have punched you in the face. That's how much this hitter has improved. It's ludicrous how good he's gotten. Love the option. Soderstrom at just 41-31, 18 home runs on the board, 199 ISO, a 120 WRC plus over 395. Another dynamite option. 12.6% barrels, 47.5% hard hits. What's not to like? Shea Langoliers is great for power upside as a affordable catcher at 39, where you have to play him 3,000 on FanDuel. He's one of the three guys above the magic number for home run upside, 11.44. He's hit a dozen with a 198 ISO and 267 chances. Then you get to Miguel Andujar, Max Muncy, Denzel Clark. Andujar is interesting, at least for the hit tool. 3,000, 2,500 with multi-position on both sites. He's a very usable piece, and I think a lot of things as you build A's probably would end up pivoting around some of that, especially as the fifth man on DraftKings, just because that lower price would help things work a little bit. I just don't love the 7 spot because he's leading into now Max Muncy, Denzel Clark, a little bit separated to use him as a true wraparound. He'd be ideal if he was hitting 9th. That would be really interesting. This Max Muncy, decent barrel rate, but pretty weak as far as the hard hits go. He's hit 9 home runs in 203 chances, has a 178 ISO, but just a 77 WRC plus. Not ideal. Denzel Clark, though, for 27, for 24. Yeah, these are bad numbers. 210, 259, 326. Just a 253 ex-WOBA. But he has crept his way up to a 7.5% barrel rate, a 40% hard hit. He strikes out way too much and does not walk. But at those cheap prices, if I'm just looking for one good batted ball event, especially if I've got Andujar in there, that would be interesting. So the way that I think that you play that is those two to cheapen things up, and then like 1, 2, 3, something like that. And now I'm down at 38.20 a piece for a lineup that does still include Butler, Kurtz, and Rooker, with guys who might be on base in front of him, guys who might give you a little bit from down here. For Clark, it's really a low faith thing as far as him actually coming through for us, but I think that works at these prices, and nobody's going to own him. On the other side, Angel Martinez at the top, 29-28, has 8 home runs, 6 steals, a 78 WRC plus, switch hitter, second base eligible, mix and match piece off the top of the lineup, but gains a little bit of ground going up against JP Sears here. David Fry's interesting, especially because he's got catcher eligibility on DK for just 2,500. 8.1% barrels, 45.9% hard hits over 73 plate appearances. Just ignore the slash line. He's hit 3 home runs, just a 149 ISO, a 182 XWOBA. There is nothing appealing about any of that outside of a little faith that there's some right-handed pop in that bat at that cheap price where you have to play catchers. Don't really want Fry at first. Don't really want him on FanDuel. But if you're going there, catcher on DK for 25 works. Jose Ramirez at 55-38 is a superstar. You just play him in basically every Guardian stack. 18 homers, 29 steals, a 136 WRC plus. Easily their best option. Carlos Santana's gotten a little bit cheap at 3,600. He still has a 6.1% barrel, 41.3% hard hit. Still low strikeout, high walk. But the power's kind of come and gone a lot this season. 11 homers in 360 chances, just a 129 ISO, 98 WRC plus. It's not the old Carlos Santana. It's just the old Carlos Santana now. Nolan Jones at 27-25. I don't love the lefty of it. I don't love the numbers he's put up so far this season, but there's an appealing hitter there. I'm still convinced of this. 8% barrels, 46.3% hard hits in a otherwise terrible season. A 338 xWOBA to back me up on that point. Does draw a 10.7% walk against an aggressive strikeout rate and had that really interesting Colorado stretch. So I like the upside. I really, really do, but it's probably more in the long-term sense. Today, he's just kind of a discounted, easy to reach option. Willie Wilson at the Deadman, second base and third base eligible on DK, 2,100 on FanDuel, over 74 plate appearances, really not done anything at all. Any reason to go to this guy? 460 AA and AAA, 360 at AA, 100 in AAA. Plate appearances last year in the San Francisco system. As a 25-year-old at those levels, slashed 216, 299, 296. Apparently that's good enough to get you promoted to the major leagues. Wow. Yeah, not much there for Willie Wilson. Bo Naylor, a cheap catcher option, another one, but I would greatly prefer David Fry up from the top if I'm playing on DraftKings. Naylor's a mixer. He does have true power, 9 home runs and a 180 ISO over 244 plate appearances, but everything else is bad. Even the hard hit rate at 35.8% is pretty bad. You just get the occasional barrel and well-struck ball for a homer out of Bo Naylor and not much else. 76 WRC plus. And Brian Rocchio is not a bad at all. 190, 252, 278, and a 50 WRC plus. I got to do it. A's bats. Guardians bats. No, actually, I'm wrong. A's bats, Slate Ciccone, Guardians bats, JP Sears, but only on DraftKings. That is just a punt cheap bargain bin type spot at 62 on DK. I want no part of JP Sears at 81 on FanDuel. I didn't mean you, Cubs. I meant the straw man. Punch me in the face. I was looking for something more emphatic than like called you crazy. That was the first thing that came out of my mouth. Would not punch anybody. At least not any of you guys. I can really only think of one person in the entire industry that I would definitely punch if I met him. Some of you probably know who it is. He's not the guy who used to sign my paychecks. Not him. Somebody I've never actually worked officially with. Captain America Bleed says, "Ooh." Other people in the chat can provide guesses. I bet you Dennis could tell you. Cubs definitely knows. Brian C says, Terry, do you utilize the difference between five-man stacks and 4-man? If so, when? I'm not sure what you mean, Brian. Do I utilize the difference between 5-man and 4-man? If you could clarify that question a little bit, Brian, I'd be happy to answer. Maybe if you have like an example of what you're talking about or something. It was not Eric. Cubs got it. Dave's not here, man. Low total for the Royals. They've been kind of underwhelming throughout the season. You do have 3 pretty good WRC plus marks in the heart of the lineup there with Bobby Witt, Vinny Pasquantino, and Michael Garcia, the players that we actually like, the players that we actually want to get to. Then you throw Sal Perez and all his power upside on top of that mix, and there's your direct 4-man, and you can maybe attach a Jonathan India, Jack Hagley, known from either side of that combination. But the heart of the Royals is where you really want to live. Among people who are going to the Royals bats, basically everybody's going to be grabbing that stretch and either him or him. There's not a lot to love around the Nick Loftons, John Raves, and Kyle Isbells of the world. They are mixers. They can make or break a Royal stack on the right day, and they're at very cheap prices. So they do end up in lineups. But, you know, if we're talking about 3 hand-built Royals lineups, how many people are really clicking those guys in unless they absolutely have to? So it puts those guys on the board for mixers for sure, but the heart of the lineup is really where you want to live if you're going to the Royals, and they're at a sub-4 total against a guy who, at least at one point, was really good. Sandy comes in with a 7.22 ERA and a 4.49 xFIP. Obviously, there's a lot of separation there, but the 4.49 is still not all that appealing. It's not finding the swinging strikes, not finding the called strikes. 17.3% Ks against 9% walks just doesn't work, especially not against a 9% barrel, 44.5% hard hits, and 90.6 miles an hour of exit velo. He's probably gotten a little lucky for that to be about around a 3 or a sub 3% home run rate, but he definitely has kept the ball down somewhat. 8.8 degree average launch this season, kind of saving his life as far as that goes. This could be uglier if he was giving up some more fly ball. Interestingly, with all of that kind of misfiring, Stuff Plus still loves the arsenal. The pitches, physics-wise, are still working really well. They're just not fooling hitters. They're just getting tattooed when people are making contact. Dicey spot for Sandy. 6,000, probably worth a few SP2 shares, but it's a low strikeout Royals opponent. It's really not an ideal opponent, even to roll those dice, throw that dart. 73 on FanDuel. kind of the same thing. The one thing I'll throw into the mix on the FanDuel side is that Sandy does still pitch fairly deep into a lot of these games. He's gone 6, even with problems in a fair number of starts this year. Like 3 starts ago, he went 6 against the Diamondbacks. He allowed 7 earned runs on 10 hits, 4 strikeouts, no walk, one home run allowed. So that was not a quality start. Neither was the start 2 starts ago. Neither was the one most recently. He gave up 6 and only went 5. 4 strikeouts in all 4 of his last 4 starts. But with that ability to book 6 innings, there's at least that odd angle toward the quality start bonus. There's that odd angle toward the win with the maybe slightly better than their reputation now Marlins going up against a gettable enough Seth Lugo. It's definitely just a bank shot off the corner, but he's on the board. Seth Lugo's way more on the board at 93, 97, a very realistic option against one of the lower end lineups on the board today. Projects out near the top of the slate. You can see, though, a 2.67 ERA and a 4.06 xFIP. So that's noteworthy. Does that hurt him today against the Marlins? Hurt the appeal today against the Marlins? No, not really. He's pitched to a 21.9% strikeout rate. A few too many walks at 7.7, but that's entirely manageable. What he has given up, a lot of power, a lot of hard hit, a lot of exit velo. This is way above our threshold. That's a little bit above our threshold. That's approaching 10%, and it comes on a fly ball trajectory. 3.74% home runs. That could easily be above 4%. And you've got some guys on this team that can square the ball up a little bit. You've also got some appealing table setters. Marlin stacks, if you're building 150, if you're building 20, I think there's a few. If you're building 150, there's a few. If you're building 20, it's probably worth one. You probably have more Seth Lugo on the other side of that equation, though. Again, one of our top projected pitchers and fairly priced for a matchup against the Fish. Starting with the Royals bats, Jonathan India at 35-28. Man, I was raving about this spot, this opportunity for Jonathan India and the quality that he would bring to this Royals lineup, and boy, did he not deliver so far. 251, 332, 348, a 91 WRC plus. Does have that nice 340 xWOB under the covers. Only 4 home runs, no steals is really weird for him. He is still getting on base. He's the table setter, but he's lost a lot around the edges. Still low strikeout, medium walk, playable at 35. Second base is the ideal spot to plunk him, so you just want him ahead of, like I was saying before, Bobby Witt, Vinny, Garcia. Witt at 56, 39, 14 homers, 25 stolen bases. Tremendous. He's a star 127 WRC plus. You just play Bobby Witt if you're going Royals. He's also a top end one-off at the shortstop position if you got money to spend. Vinny at 37, 3,000. What are we doing? Come on. 337 on DraftKings. 3,000 I get on FanDuel, but come on, DraftKings. 3,700. He's got an 8.6% barrel, 44.7% hard hits, 16.8% strikeouts, 6.7% walks. So everything thrown at him gets returned in play the other way, or 80% of the pitches thrown to him get returned the other direction. Slashing 272, 329, 437, 15 home runs, a 109 WRC plus over 404 plate appearances. Vinny Pasquantino is very, very good at this. Take advantage of that low price if you're going Royals. Michael Garcia is too low priced at 41.31. 3 positions on FanDuel, third base, perfectly fine on DraftKings. Dude's got 8 home runs, 18 steals, a 297, 354, 454 slash line, a 123 WRC plus, and potentially more to give based on that 341 xWOBA. 44% hard hits, 6% barrels on the season. That's up from 3.7 last year, 3.9 the year before. Dramatic year-over-year improvement for Michael Garcia, just him coming into his own, realizing the full potential of his talents. Sal may be a guy coming back down the other side of the mountain. 13 home runs, though. Still competent for power at the absolute worst, and I would expect a decent second half from Sal here. 14.1% barrels, 44.9% hard hits. For 35, as long as he maintains catcher eligibility, he is always going to be a part of DraftKings lineups. And at 3,000 on FanDuel, perfectly fine. Still a very appealing player. Caglianone for 27.25 across sites. Outfield only on DraftKings. I think he's probably fair to say, though, at that price, more than just another outfielder. That's in spite of a 140, 196, 264 slash line over his first 138 plate appearances. He's at least hit those 4 home runs. He's got a 330 xWOB under the covers based on his 11.1% barrel, 41.4% hard hit. Kid's one of the top prospects in baseball. It hasn't fully materialized since the promotion, but at least the power stroke has been there on and off. you can find true upside out of that player, and he's going to surge at some point. Might not even be this year. Might not be till next year. But he is a true talent. And then I talked about Lofton, Raven, Isbell already. Let's pick up some time. Mixers at the absolute best. Xavier Edwards, top of the Marlins lineup, 39-29 across sites. Solid slash line at 288, 352, 347. Tremendous table setter. Just doesn't give you a ton of upside outside of the ability to get to first and then maybe steal you a bag. He's got 16 on the season. Just a 98 WRC plus. Needs a little bit of support from his friends. Needs to get on base maybe even a little bit more than that already. Very, very good 352 on base. Jesus Sanchez, 11.7% barrels, 44.7% hard hits. Just 7 home runs is maybe a little bit underwhelming for that kind of contact over nearly 300 plate appearances. 150 ISO is definitely underwhelming for that. But a 350 xWOBA, he is creating runs at a 103 pace via WRC+. There's a lot to like about a $3,000 Jesus Sanchez. Otto Lopez, 34-31, mix and match quality. He's got 11 homers, 10 steals. He's not uninteresting if you're already going to the Marlins. But to me, he's not really, especially at shortstop, not really a reason to go to the Marlins. I guess then Ramirez is maybe a reason to go to the Marlins, though. 3,900, a 12% barrel, 48.4% hard hits over his first 301 major league plate appearances. Carrying a 228 ISO and 14 home runs with a 106 WRC+. Kid is downright interesting. The other thing about him, doesn't really strike out that much. 18.9% strikeouts, 6.3% walks. Again, for a rookie, that's pretty good. Kyle Stowers has been their best bat this season, 19 home runs. He's an all-star, 293, 368, 543, 250 ISO, 19.4% barrel. Those are very, very real power numbers. Kyle Stowers, I was going to say this is not surprising, but it's a little surprising. He'd always shown this upside for power. Just to have it all arrive all at once, like it has over this first half, maybe a little bit surprising, but dude is just good now. Liam Hicks at 31-24, solid slash line, great on base at 367 over 198 plate appearances. Doesn't hit the ball particularly hard, but gives you a little bit of hit tool upside, gives you a little bit of run creation, correlated scoring upside from the catcher spot. Very playable. Dane Myers at 33-27, a very solid slash line. Not a ton of power out of him either, but he's at least hits the ball. Let's say he stings the ball rather than hitting it hard. 14 stolen bases, a 330 on base, right at league average via the 100 WRC+. Graham Pauley. Don't sleep on Graham Pauley if you're going to the Marlins. He doesn't project particularly well, so you'd probably have to go and actually put him in a lineup outside of that dead min price on DraftKings, the 22 on FanDuel. Over 94 plate appearances so far this season, been pretty empty. In 144 down at AAA as a 24-year-old this season, same year, 7 home runs, 5 steals, a 263, 44, 96 slash line. In 481 minor league plate appearances, 301 of which came at AAA last season. 14 home runs, 7 steals, a 229, 333, 393 is pretty underwhelming. A lot of walks. 23 home runs in 2023, mostly high A to double A as a 22-year-old. 308, 393, 538 slash line. So at each level as he's gone up, he's kind of needed a minute to find it. But he's been interesting once he's found it at each of those stops coming up through the minors. I think that's just what we're looking at here in the show now. Just needs a minute to find it. But he's a talented guy. For the dead min price, it's a good pitcher on the mound. But if you need to cheapen up an already cheap Marlin stack, that's not an uninteresting bat at the bottom. And then Nick Fortes at 2,300 is a mix and match quality guy. Let's go like 1, 2, skip Otto, 3, 4. And then the min, and I'm at 36.60 a piece for the 5-man on DraftKings. Filled out catcher, second base, pair of outfielders and third base. So now I get to use first base, outfield, and shortstop from a team like, say, the New York Mets. Pete Alonso, Frankie Lindor, and Juan Soto look pretty good stacked in with those 5 Marlins. Just a thought. Seth Lugo. Boy. I really don't love this Royals lineup this way. Seth Lugo, top 6 in the Royals lineup. Marlins lineup. Bottom 3 in the Royals lineup. And then Sandy. Sandy really only a DraftKings dart, I think. Ooh, I'm taking my time with this one, huh? Yanks bats. I imagine this lineup's in. No, not yet. Definitely weather to watch in this one. So keep an eye on that. Spencer Strider at 9,000, very nicely priced against the Yankees lineup that comes in with a 24.4% strikeout rate for this projected version. At 10-2 on FanDuel, he's incredibly worthwhile. It's just different as far as that price goes, but you can see for yourself that 29% strikeout rate, 15.9% swinging. These numbers are at least reminiscent of the old Spencer Strider. 3.94 ERA at 3.54 xFIP are a little bit high, 9.4% walks, a lot of premium contact. That's where maybe he could get burnt. But I would probably lean Strider against my free swinging Yankees here. Aaron Judge, the only guy in the Yankees lineup above a 10 in the home run model, is kind of telling. You know, even Stanton at 7.75, Jazzy at 8.2. Those are quality numbers, but that's not where those two guys usually would land. Strider's fantastic. Take advantage of that cheap price on DraftKings. I would expect him to be popular. Probably one of the most popular pitchers, but maybe not quite as popular as he's been in a couple of his recent outings, given that it is the Yanks on the other side, given there's weather in the area. Even at 4,000, you don't want Hammer here. He's a max of 3 innings, and 3 innings is probably a stretch. He's not bad in relief work, but not really appealing here. Plenty of upside for the Braves on the other side. Probably a little bit more home run upside too, especially depending on what comes out of the bullpen after Hammer. He's been decent at limiting home runs, 2.72% home runs in his 36 1/3 this year. Last year, just 1.23% home runs in a strong 37 2/3. So it's having a little artificial impact on those numbers as far as the Braves home run upside. Just something to keep in mind. Just a 405 implied total for the Braves, though. It's not like they're surging toward the top of the board. If you're going Yankees bats against Spencer Strider, if you get Jason Dominguez in the leadoff spot, that's not a bad option. He's getting on base at a 343 clip this year. He's stolen 14 bases, 114 WRC plus. Maybe not delivering exactly what the Yankees expected from him, which was more power. But this is really nice to see. If he can add the power back into this mix and the 8% barrel, the 51.3% hard hit tells me that he can. Love the upside. 4,029 hitting ahead of Aaron Judge. Entirely reasonable. Yanks do flip that leadoff spot quite a bit, though. So keep in mind, you might get something different. Judgy at 64.48 is Aaron Judge. Enough said. Monty says, just a thought. It's coming from the baseball gods. Let's roll with it. Keith doesn't like the Marlins today, but he got paid by Stowers before the break. There you go. Yeah, look, I'm not strongly advocating for the Marlins. What they are is just kind of cheap, maybe a little bit more interesting than what they look like. And they're going up against a upper echelon for this slate pitcher who's going to be kind of highly owned, I think, for being Seth Lugo. So there are game theory reasons, and there's a little bit of like baseball reason to consider some Marlins. But like I said, it's a few shares across 150. It's maybe one if you're building 20, 25 lineups. TechX Sneak says, what's up with this Hamilton kid from the Yanks? Yeah, again, maxed out so far this season with 2 innings. So we're not getting more than 3. Coming out of the break, I could see 3. But I do not think, and Boone kind of prizes some of these relievers, so I don't think there's going to be a like surge to 5 innings. If he goes 5, let's put it this way: if he goes 5, your money back for this free show. Would surprise me. Brian, no, I think it's going to be pure bullpen after Hammer comes out. There is not, to my knowledge, a scheduled bulk reliever. This is filling in. The reason he's making this opening appearance is this is Max Fried's spot, and they're giving Fried a couple extra days to overcome the blister that he got in his start last Saturday. Brian says, whatever happened to Gundacker? Did you fire him? Gun didn't ever work for me. We just got together because we're pals and did a couple shows together. Would love to make that happen. We're just both bad at planning and communicating is really all it comes down to. I think he's either just finishing up a show or about to. He was doing one just before I started over on his channel. So yeah, we'll definitely make that happen at least a couple more times through the season. But no, did not fire a gun, would not fire a gun. He's very good at this. Continuing on with the Yankees lineup, Cody Bellinger having a tremendous year, 282, 336, 494, a 129 WRC plus. What I love about Cody, solid bat on ball and improved over the last 2 years while sacrificing none of his excellent strikeout rate. He's actually improved upon the 15.6 that he's put up exactly over the last 2 seasons, down to 14.4, maintaining a very similar walk rate. It's just Cody Bellinger approaching his peak form. Giancarlo Stanton, 4 home runs in 78 plate appearances. 13.6% barrels, 54.5% hard hits. There's a lot of downside with Giancarlo, sure, but there's a lot of upside on the right day. You catch that swing, if he makes contact with the ball travels. And he's only 35 on DraftKings, 31 on FanDuel. He's way, 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 way more than just another outfielder on any slate against any pitcher. That said, very likely that Spencer Strider is going to strike Giancarlo Stanton out 3 times today. Jazzy at 54-37, 17 homers, 10 steals. Tremendous season with 263 ISO, a 140 WRC plus. He's just good. Very expensive to face Spencer Strider. You can throw that in the mix. 26.9% strikeout rate, pretty high. Definitely a target for Strider Ks, but wouldn't shock me if Jazzy was able to turn on one. Goldschmidt, 37, 3,000. Look, he's priced down because of a decline from where he was at the beginning of the season. But even after the decline, we're still at 287, 345, 431, 347 xWOBA, 116 WRC plus. Hits the ball hard, just not a tremendous home run hitter anymore. 8 homers on the season, but that is totally effective with the ability of everybody above him in the lineup to get on base ahead of him. There's not a guy above him that has below a 330 on base. There's just a dynamite lineup spot for a very good hitter. Austin Wells, solid barrel rate, solid hard hit, 14 home runs, a 230 ISO. Wells is the opposite. Wells is more just home run power or nothing, but very playable at 36 on DraftKings. Volpe, mix and match quality. Ozzy Peraza, not much of a hitter. What Peraza gives you is some memory of a solid minor league pedigree coming up through the system and a very, very cheap price where you plunk him in at second base and you try not to worry about it. But he has done essentially nothing with his 160 plate appearances, has never really delivered what he was supposed to at the major league level. Yankees will replace him before the trade deadline. Not necessarily send him out, but just they will have somebody better filling that spot. Braves bats, Jerickson Profar in the leadoff spot. I don't love Jerickson Profar. I think anybody who watches this show a fair amount of time knows that. 270, 281, 476, a 108 WRC plus, and mostly artificial from those good numbers that he had over the last couple seasons, apparently. Matty Olson at 52-36, pretty effectively priced. 17 home runs on the board, a 206 ISO, 132 WRC plus, and set to destroy the second half. 16.7% barrels, 54.4% hard hits. Olson's just really good. Ronnie Acuna at 62-41, ludicrous to come back from missing nearly a full season. 193 plate appearances. He got a dozen home runs, a 323, 435, 590 slash line, and a 186 WRC plus with a 407 xWOBA. Drake Baldwin, tremendous bat at the catcher spot for 42-28. He's hit 11 home runs from the left side, and you get the double barrel catchers out of the Braves. They haven't done that a lot this season. 38 for Sean Murphy is a great price considering a 16.3% barrel rate, and the 16 home runs that he's hit, 225 plate appearances, 281 ISO. That's a monster power bat, and you get him back-to-back in the lineup. Can't play them together on DraftKings. Can do on FanDuel, but you would have to skip Matt Olson to do that. So you're probably picking one or the other between those catchers. Ozzy Albies, 35-26. Been a little bit challenged so far this season, just a 72 WRC plus. Apologies, Nacho's stat line so far. He just got called up the other day to fill in while Austin Riley is hurt. We must have a junior conflict going on there that I haven't corrected yet. Thus far, 286, 375, 286 over his 8 plate appearances since getting called up. Down in the minors over, it's just 54 plate appearances this season. 333, 519, 47. That's an irrelevant sample. Last season in 491 minor league plate appearances split between AA and AAA. 284, 391, 401. 10 home runs, 26 steals. He's mostly a contact-oriented hitter, contact, get on base, but he's actually good, at least at those things. So kid's a for-real player, not a tremendous power bat, but at 2,300, especially again with second base eligibility, 2,200 3-position eligibility on FanDuel, at least worth considering saving the $1,200 considering what Ozzy's given you this season at second base. The kid's got a bat. Mikey Harris is similar to Albies, has been really challenging for quality this year, despite being very, very good over the last couple of seasons. Where it went, I have no idea. Is he playable at those prices against Ian Hamilton and the Yankees bullpen? Absolutely. If you're building out Brave stacks and you need to cheapen something up and fill an outfield spot, Michael Harris is right there for you. And Nick Allen's here for defense. Spencer Strider. Yankees bats. Braves bats. Don't play Yankees pitching. Oh, thanks a lot, Labs. Great. That Yankees lineup was in, and it's different. Jeez, it's quite a bit different, actually. All right. I'm not going to do the full thing again. I'm going to talk very quickly about the differences that were added here because they're important. All right, so Trent Grisham's in the leadoff spot. He's getting on base a lot. He's also hitting for power. Let's call him as interesting as Jason Dominguez, who slides down to the 5 spot. You get Belly in the 2, Judge 3rd, Jazzy in the 4 spot. All those guys, same take. Ben Rice, a lot of power upside. He's slipped as far as the averagely on base, the overall general quality, but the power is still very, very real, and he's got catcher eligibility on DraftKings, which is quite nice. First base, you go back and forth with those guys. There's no other first base conflict, so that's probably where you land him, and then you can get him and Wells at cheap prices into that lineup. And then you've got Yorby Bibas at the bottom of the lineup. Hit tool focused player who has not provided hit tool over his 55 plate appearances. 1 home run on the board, a 45 WRC plus. Not a lot to like there. Kind of an underwhelming option. Rankings all stay the same. O's bats against Taj. Ray's bats against Charlie. As stated at the beginning of the show, Charlie Morton over Taj Bradley here. Charlie comes in with a 5.18 ERA, but a 4.16 xFIP, 23.1% Ks. That walk rate is ugly. 10% walks is problematic. 1.52 whip is even more problematic. But he's induced an 11.1% swinging strike rate. Stuff Plus measures out right around the league average. It's allowed a little bit too much hard hit, but just negligibly so. A little bit too much exit velo, which is challenging, but only a 7.7% barrel. And again, has not allowed more than 4 earned runs since, what did I say, mid-May? It's been really, really improved through this stretch. He went to pitching in a bulk relief role for like 3 appearances or 6 appearances with a start in the middle. And that really kind of bolstered him for June. Once June hit, he was starting full bore again. And he's only had that one bumpy one. 4 earned runs over 2 1/3 against the Athletics at Sacramento. Struck out 5 and walked 4. Oddly didn't allow a home run in that game. Even with those premium contact numbers, and I think this is actually kind of noteworthy as well, in this strong stretch, since the first start back after that bulk relief assignment on May 26th, he allowed a home run that day, and he allowed a home run 2 starts ago on July 4th against Atlanta. So he's allowed 2 home runs in his last 8 appearances. So he's kind of negated any of the downside here. He allowed a ton of home runs in the first handful of starts, but it amounts to just a 2.89% home run rate allowed now. It's an interesting enough option at 75, 82. The Rays come in not showing a lot of obvious strikeout, but that's greatly helped by 9% from Chandler Simpson up at the top. It's greatly helped by 12-2 out of Jake Mangum and 13-6 out of Yandy Diaz. Now, you can't entirely discount the fact that those guys are in the lineup. Obviously, those are challenges. But if you average just the other hitters in this lineup, now we're talking about a 24.5% strikeout rate. That's pretty significant. There is strikeout upside available for Charlie. Going the other way, Taj, 103 2/3 over 19 starts, a 20.4% strikeout, 4.60 ERA, and a 4.16 xFIP. Too many walks, too many guys on base, not enough swinging strikes, not enough strikes in general. Not that bad as far as the barrels, the hard hits, the exit velo, just a 2.75% home run rate, just under the mark via Stuff Plus. He's just been a little bit up and down. This ballpark can work against pitchers, but it hasn't cost him too dearly. Has flashed a little bit of strikeout upside. 7 innings, 10 strikeouts against Houston back on June 1st. That was his strikeout high for the season. Has four games with 7 Ks, but overall just kind of a mid-board type pitcher. What he's not on this slate, though, is expensive at all. 7,200 is entirely manageable on DraftKings, especially against an underwhelming so far this season overall Orioles team. Maybe improved in recent weeks, but for the year, they've been a little bit tough, and they're coming in with a 25% strikeout rate for this confirmed version of the lineup. So there's enough to like, especially at that price on DK. 85 on FanDuel, more of another arrow in your quiver rather than a super appealing spot. I'll play the Orioles a little bit more, I think, against, given the ballpark downside for the pitcher on the FanDuel slate. It's probably about a dead even split on DraftKings. Jackson Holliday remains cheap on the DraftKings slate. He's got a dozen home runs and 373 plate appearances, 10.5% barrels, 44.9% hard hits, and he only costs $3,800 at second base. That works. 103 WRC plus, a 331 xWOBA. You get Jordan Westburg in the second spot. He's hit 10 home runs in just 180 chances this year. He's got a 222 ISO, monster barrel and hard hit numbers. Strikes out a fair amount, doesn't draw that many walks, but a 117 WRC plus against the power works very, very well for those prices. Third base and second base eligible on FanDuel. Third base on DraftKings, perfectly fine. 4,500 for Gunnar is cheap. 52.2% hard hits on the season. 11 home runs, a stable, if underwhelming for him, slash line of 280, 348, 455, a 124 WRC plus. Ryan O'Hearn at 4,000, 3,100, despite his strong first half that made him an all-star. 286, 382, 458. They did like a red carpet type interview thing, and I saw they were interviewing O'Hearn, and his wife was standing next to him, and they asked her, like, what do you think? And she's, oh my God, it's amazing. I never thought we would get here. And if you're O'Hearn, you're standing next to her. It's like, oh, thanks for the faith, babe. My God, you never thought I would be an all-star? Appreciate it. For what it's worth, I also never thought Ryan O'Hearn would be an all-star, but here we are. Very strong first half this year and was good for this team last year. Still affordable. Ramon Laureano at 39, 3,000, 11 home runs. Very solid slash line out of him this year. A 140 WRC plus that leads this team. That's an appealing bat to throw at Taj Bradley if you need just a cheap outfielder. Overall, he's probably mostly along the lines of just another outfielder. But he's very playable if you're going to Orioles, and he barrels the ball. He hits it very hard, has done for the last couple seasons. Colton Cowser's a true power bat from the left side, 4,200, 3,200 across sites. One of 2 guys above the magic number in this home run model for this team. But you've got this entire stretch of hitters is approaching the 10 mark. I think it's an underrated spot for the Orioles against Taj Bradley here. I really do. Kobe Mayo, Jacob Stallings down bottom of the lineup. Sed Mullins, mix and match pieces all. Sed is probably the most interesting guy at 38, 31, given the counting stat upside, 13 home runs, 13 steals. Most of those came at the very beginning of the season. It's been a minute since he's provided a ton of quality, but he's got that in his bag. Mayo, I do believe there's a decent hitter there. It's been a challenging 85 plate appearances, just a 58 WRC plus, but the 8.8% barrel, the 42.1% hard hits. Let's focus on those. At 26, at 23 at the corners, he's playable. Stallings gives you a very little appeal. On the Rays side, Chandler Simpson is the Flash. 26 stolen bases in his 200 plate appearances. He's the Flash with a hit tool. How about that? 308, 340, 351 on the season. 95 WRC plus. He doesn't provide anything really outside of his ability to reach first base and then some stolen base and correlated scoring upside. But he's very, very good at those things. That WRC plus should definitely climb. Brendan Lau back in the lineup, tremendous power bat from the left side at second base for an affordable price. He's got 19 home runs at 215 ISO. Johnny Diaz, low strikeout, high walk, this year medium walk. Slashing 285, 339, 454, a 120 WRC plus. He's got 14 home runs. That's with a 10.1% barrel, 53.3% hard hits. Look at this stretch of barrel rate, hard hit that you get from those 4 bats. Lau, Diaz, Aranda, and Junior Caminero are the most appealing bats in this lineup, full stop. Aranda, very solid lefty bat for 45-31, has 11 home runs, just a 168 ISO. With that kind of contact, those two things don't jive. I believe in the contact, that ISO should climb. A little bit of bad luck baked into that, a little bit of happenstance baked into that. Caminero at 5,000, 3,400, perfectly fine. He's got 23 home runs this year, 246 ISO. Not great at getting on base outside of the power, 252, 292, but a 499 slug and a 246 ISO, 115 WRC plus works just fine. Josh Lowe at 5,000. I don't love that price. He is a good player, but he should probably be more like 45, 40, 4 and change. 3,000 on FanDuel is correct and reflects that, I think. 249, 319, 402, 6 homers, 6 steals this year. 102 WRC plus still, coming off of 10 homers, 25 steals, and 98 WRC plus. 20 homers, 32 steals 2 years ago. That was the really good season, the 131 WRC plus. He's very playable, though. I would rather have $5,000 Josh Lowe than $4,200 Jake Mangum. 3,028 on FanDuel. Mangum comes in with a 310, 349, 394 slash line, a 111 WRC plus, 13 steals. I just don't believe in the bat very much. Low strikeout, low walk, weak contact. There's a reason this guy never made the show until he was 29. Ha-Seong Kim is an interesting bat to mix into this lineup now. I think it's the first time we've gotten to talk about him all season. Been out for most of the year. 22 plate appearances so far, a home run, a stolen base. If you look back in time, last year, 11 homers, 22 steals in 470 plate appearances that were underwhelming. Year before that, 17 homers, 38 steals in 626 plate appearances, had a 112 WRC plus. Really interesting hitter when he's on form. Danny Jansen is always playable as a cheap catcher bat because he puts decent bat on ball from time to time. He's hit 9 home runs and 233 chances, 172 ISO's all right. You take the bad with the good when you go to Danny Jansen. I don't know that I want to go into Vegas that aggressively with Charlie Morton. I'm really tempted to say Charlie on top, but I'll say Rays, then Charlie, then O's, then Taj. 4 corners game, though. Taj is playable, at least on DraftKings. FanDuel is challenging, but definitely a 4-corner spot. This ballpark helps that. Tigers. Do we have the Tigers lineup? We do. Beautiful. Tigers, just generally speaking, a very solid offense. I already said on this show that Patrick Corbin's been pitching fairly well for Patrick Corbin this year. 4.15 ERA, a 4.11 xFIP, 18.8% strikeouts against 6.9% walks. It's all fine. It's all well and good. Even on the power side, 38.5% hard hits, 89.2 miles an hour of exit velo, 8.2% barrels. If his name wasn't Patrick Corbin, it wouldn't really stand out. Right? It's against a lot of pitchers. Riley Green, Spencer Torkelson would come through at similar power numbers. We just know for sure that there's a little bit more meat on the bone downside for Patrick Corbin. There's a little more meat on the bone upside for the Tigers than might be truly visible with these 17 starts. Some of that's coming through. 427 implied total on the Detroit side is enough to work with already. And I think, again, more realistically should be like 4.5, maybe some upside there. I would probably play some Patty Corbin at 73 on DraftKings just as a mixer. There are some strikeouts in this Tigers lineup. There's also some guys that are good at avoiding it, but that low 21.2 or average 21.2, somewhat bolstered by Matt Vierling, definitely by Johnny Jones in a small sample, and certainly by Gleyber Torres, who's just been a very good hitter and low strikeout all season long. Loosely playable Patty Corbin, but low end down toward the bottom of the list. 7,800 on FanDuel. I really don't need all that much of it. Last time out, 6 strikeouts, 2 walks, a home run allowed. Just 2 earned runs on 7 hits over 5 against the Angels at LA. 6 innings of 2-run ball against the Padres. 3 strikeouts and a walk, but a home run allowed in that one. 3 out of 4 games struck out 6, but in 2 out of those 4, he allowed a home run again. There's power all around the edges on this board. He's capable of giving you 5 and change, 6. Deepest start of the year went 8. Went 8 against the Nats. His old team struck out just 2, walked 0, a home run allowed, 2 earned runs on 5 hits. That's been like his typical start this year. I feel like we've seen a little bit more downside after that one, though. More of his earned run game, he's given up more earned runs in the 6 starts since that one overall. Given up a few more home runs in that stretch. That 8 innings might have cost him a little something. Like the Tigers upside, Reese Olson at 76.83. Solid 22.8% strikeout rate, a 2.95 ERA is sparkling, but a 3.89 xFIP is probably the true number, especially when you got a 9.1% walk. He's good at missing bats, though, 12.9% swinging strike rate. This is his third start back. He pitched March, April, and part of May, and then was out until July 4th. Came back on the 4th, pitched 4 1/3, 3 strikeouts and a walk, allowed a home run, but that was the only earned run on 6 hits. 6 hits allowed to the Rays in 5 innings in his second start. 2 earned runs, 1 strikeout, 2 walks. The lack of Ks is at least a blip there, something to talk about. But prior to that was striking out hitters just as effectively as he was last season, and you can see it in the rate there. So I like the upside enough for some cheap Reese Olson at 76.83 to throw at a underwhelming but maybe gradually by increments improving Rangers lineup. 4.33 implied total, 4.27 on the Tigers side. 4 corners game in this one, but my preference is for Tigers bats, as I keep on saying. Gleyber Torres at 45, 3,000, 281, 387, 425 with a 133 WRC plus this year. He's hit 9 home runs. Tremendous season out of Gleyber. I wish he was still a Yankee. I said it at the start of the year. I said at the end of last year and throughout last year that he was playing his way out of town and it would be a problem. And here we are. Johnny Jones at 32, 23. Pretty solid 48 plate appearances so far this year. In 47 last year, he wasn't quite as good. In 11 the year before, he wasn't quite as good either. Kind of minors numbers we got on Johnny. What's his biggest sample in the show? 72 plate appearances back in 2021. And that was his worst stretch. So we're talking about basically a quad A player. He's made 205 AAA plate appearances this year as a 27-year-old, 276, 392, 482 with a 206 ISO. Has hit 6 home runs and stolen 8 bases. Peaked at like the 10 to 12 home run range across his run through the minors. Decent ISO in most of these stops. A little bit old for some of these levels in several of these stops where he's shown that, though. Worst case scenario, you're just taking the cheap option in the I just noticed those projections on him. I gotta flag that. That's not gonna work actually, because that name's gonna change. Glad I spent so much time just now talking about Johnny Jones, because something on the back end has a screwy on these projections. That is way too high, obviously. He's not the highest projected player on the Tigers on either site. I'll fix that in the update after the show. So he's a playable bet, but he's nowhere near those projections. He's just cheap and in a good correlated scoring position with the hitters you want from this lineup. Apologies for that. I'm glad I caught it. Riley Green is a hitter you want from this lineup. 18.1% barrels, 46.5% hard hits, nearly a 12 in the home run model. He's at 24 this season. He's their best hitter. The guy after him, $4,200, $3,200 at first base, Spencer Torkelson, carrying an 11-11 in the home run model today with 21 in his pocket on the season, a 255 ISO, and slotted in as today's home run pick of the day, Mr. Spencer Torkelson. Matt Vierling, competent enough as far as a bat on ball hitter. Small sample, 10% barrels, 43% hard hits. Probably going to come down more toward these numbers. Obviously a weak slash line there. Last year in 567 plate appearances, 257, 312, 423, a 108 WRC plus, 16 homers. Like I said, competent, cheap, affordable, decent correlated scoring spot. Wensil Perez at 45-28, mix and match quality, kind of similar. Dylan Dingler's hit the ball pretty with a lot of authority this year for 3,400, 8.6% barrels, 44.9% hard hits, 8 homers, just a 149 ISO. Doesn't really align with those numbers. A little bit of bad luck. I'm not saying it should be 200 plus, but like a 170 and change ISO would be reasonable for those. 8 home runs and 265 chances is not bad. A 101 WRC plus. McKinstry is a mix and match infielder. 8 home runs and 15 steals was a little bit of oddball output from him. Low end barrel rate, low end hard hit rate. More a hit tool, put the ball in play kind of a guy. 4,000 is reasonable on DraftKings. 29 with 4 positions on FanDuel is great. And then all-star Javi Baez. Weird. Never thought we'd be back there. 3,800 at short, 27 3 positions on FanDuel, 10 home runs in his pocket this year, a 110 WRC plus. Continues to be way substandard under the covers, but he's making it work. 275, 310, 442. We cooled from the ludicrous start that he had, but he's been effective. He really has. Playable. Rangers bats with Josh Smith, Corey Seager, Marcus Semien. This is very much the day-to-day lineup up top for the Rangers this year. 39.28 remains a decent enough price for Josh Smith with his 5-position eligibility on FanDuel. First and third is not ideal. You don't really want him at either of those positions when you compare him to all of the great corner power bats that you have available on this slate. But he does have 8 home runs, 9 steals, a 353 on base. You don't necessarily want him there. He's not the top end option, but if you're going to this team, he is very, very playable at one of those positions. Yeah, either one. I'm not going to skip over him that many times for Rowdy a few spots later down at first. Corey Seager is only 49.33 across sites. He's got 13 home runs, a 136 WRC plus, a 207 ISO, and a ludicrous 425 xWOBA that will tell you that everything else is going to continue to climb. Marcus Semien at 43,300 has pulled his act together. 12 home runs, 7 steals on the season. If nothing else, he's giving you some counting stats for DFS. Still affordably priced at second base. It's obviously an underwhelming year, but there is a little bit of lingering quality. Adolis Garcia for only 39,300. 13 home runs, 9 steals. Kind of hit his stride a little bit before the break. Hopefully he continues that. You know, he's carried the 13.6% barrels, the 48.6% hard hits basically all season. He was just seeing no results for it. Started finding some results. It'll be really interesting to see what he does coming out of the gate here. 335 xWOBA tells part of that story. Evan Carter, solid hit tool focus player, 269, 351, 425 with more to give in the average and on base department. Maybe not on base, but average certainly. 119 WRC plus, one of 4 guys in this 9-man that has a better than average WRC plus. Wyatt Langford, better player than the 242, 322, 433 would indicate. 111 WRC plus, a 344 xWOBA, 15 homers, 15 steals. It's been a okay first half, let's say. The counting stats have been very good. The premium contact numbers also quite good. Rowdy, despite playing his way out of, Milwaukee? Where the hell was he? Toronto? I forget where the hell he was. He's on the Rangers now. 2,500 and the dead min price on FanDuel. Slashing 208, 249, 434. Look, nobody's really trying to sell you that many shares of Rowdy Tellez here, but he's got a 15.9% barrel, a 48.4% hard hit. He checks in at just 4.61 in the home run model against Reese Olson today. It's not like he's exploding out of the top of the board here. But at those prices, if you're building with Rangers already, work in some Rowdy Tellez shares. He's hit 11 home runs on that contact in just 185 plate appearances. That's pretty good. Everything else about Rowdy is not that great. 26.5% strikeouts against 4.3% walks. I think it's Larry that makes fun of me for liking Rowdy. It's just about the power upside. Javier says, love your data and everything you do. I was curious about playing around with some stuff in Excel. If you could pick 2 or 3 batter stats to look at, what would you pick? It's really difficult to nail it down to 2 or 3. If I could have 3 stats, I might honestly... It's tricky because, like, I could just say xWOBA and kind of catch several of the other stats in that, but xWOBA is kind of also contextual where you need to see the other numbers to say, you know, that's a number that'll tell you underperforming, overperforming. You could get there with just like, for what you're trying to do, you could get there with just like things that tell you who the hitter is. As long as you got a fair sample, things like strikeout and walk rate against like the contact numbers, the type of contact that he makes can tell you a good amount about the hitter. So I might look at those, but then like, again, like, you know, a lot of that is going to get caught up in just xWOBA. I wouldn't look at anything that is overly results-based, backward-looking. Yeah, ISO and xWOBA are great for those, but again, those are things that are kind of catching some of these other things that I'm you know, kind of trying to weave in and out. xWOBA is great, but it needs context. ISO is results based, so ISO on its own doesn't do that much for you. It can tell you the nature of the hitter, what the power looks like, what the power results have been, but it doesn't tell you about a guy who is a great power hitter who's underperforming. right? Like if you went with just those numbers, you would have a collision of two very, very different factors on a guy like Vladdy Guerrero. Vladdy's got a ridiculous xWOBA right now and a really low ISO for him. So if you work in the context of how he's hitting the ball with the barrel, the hard hit rate on top of that, and then you work in the frequency of him making that kind of contact with the strikeout and the walk rate, you can really get to something through that. So it's all just kind of about what the numbers tell you and what you're really looking to glean from the numbers. And that's why I do so much talking on these goddamn shows, because there's so much to go through. Hopefully that was at least marginally helpful. Javier, if you want to hit me up in Discord, I'd be happy to elaborate on it a little bit more for you. Rowdy, we're on Rowdy. So Rowdy, cheap upside, a little bit of home run power, or significant home run power, not all that much else. Kyle Higashioka not barreling the ball like he has been the last couple of seasons. 4 home runs and 180 plate appearances. Pretty bad season out of Higgy. Jonah Heim at 3,000, 2,400. If you're stacking this team already, pick your poison with those catchers and it's fine, but neither of those catchers is all that much of a reason to go to the Rangers. For me, this is Tigers bats. Reese Olson, Patty Corbin, weird. Rangers bats. 4 corners game, though. Either one of these offenses is in play. Either one of the pitchers in play. Oof. We got 4 games to go, and it's 5:40. I've been luxuriating in our first day back, guys. Taking my time talking through this stuff. Coors Field game. We probably don't really need to talk about the pitching here. I'll do Chris Paddack real quick. I think everybody and their brother knows not to play Freeland. Just since I said at the beginning of the show, maybe you could throw the Paddack dart. 67 on DraftKings is where you would do it if you were going to do it, but he comes in with a 4.95 ERA, a 4.72 xFIP, just 16.4% strikeouts, 5.9% walks. Those collisions of things are not completely tragic, but that's a nothing strikeout rate. 43.8% hard hits, 7.6% barrels, nearly 90 miles an hour of exit velo. Probably a little lucky to be at 3.28% home runs, which is not a nothing home run rate, but it's also not above our, glaring warning threshold. 8.9% swinging, 22.5% CSW. Maybe he finds a few bonus Ks against just this free swinging Rockies team. 24.1% average strikeout rate with several guys in the high 20s into the 30s. Definitely could do something for a guy like Chris Paddack. And Paddack is a little bit better than these numbers when he's on form. Last year, 20.6% strikeouts over 88 and a third. That's a 5-inning sample. It's a 22-inning sample. When the hell was Chris Paddack good? There it is. 21.6% over 108 and a third with a 4.8% walk back in 2021 over 22 starts. Hasn't really been that guy in, a lot of on-off sample sizes over the last couple of years. But against this team on the right day, maybe he's got that in his bag for 67 as just a punt SP2. Freeland, very similar, honestly. If we're going to talk about Paddack being in play for those reasons, then 16.8, 5.5 is essentially identical. 5.44 ERA, but a 3.98 xFIP. It's just the Twins and a 6.21 implied total are just a big warning sign saying don't do that. So I don't think we go to Freeland even at 5,000. 7,200 on FanDuel is a big, big no. If you play Freeland, do it on DraftKings, but don't do it. Byron Buxton at 65.47, 14.53 in the home run model today. He's had a monster year, over 333 chances, 289, 351, 574, a 152 WRC plus, 21 homers, 17 steals, reminding us of his talent. He is a superstar talent who's just been way too injury prone through his career. If he had played full seasons throughout his career, we'd be talking about him as one of the best players of this generation. That's how good he is. Those prices are not wrong, especially at Coors Field. Everybody else in this lineup, I would say the prices are at least a little bit wrong. There's not another guy on DraftKings priced above 4,800 at Coors Field. On FanDuel, they got it closer to right. You've got some mid threes and so on, but you should have at least a couple more of these guys into the fives. Ryan Jeffers, Willie Castro would probably be the best candidate for that. Maybe I wouldn't have objected to Carlos Correa at least being 45, 48, something like that. You're paying essentially no Coors Field tax on a lot of these guys. Ryan Jeffers has 7 home runs. He's an affordable catcher option. I will say 47 for Ryan Jeffers is maybe a tax, actually. 17.7% strikeouts, 11.1% walks, a 111 WRC plus. He's been good. And he gets an opportunity in the 2 spot at Coors Field against Kyle Freeland. There's a lot of visible, obvious upside there. Between sites, maybe we get him a little bit sneaky lower owned on FanDuel. Not low owned on its own, but maybe like lower owned than he ought to be for a guy hitting second with this total. Probably not, but maybe. Like I could see a lot of 4-mans on FanDuel being like, all right, I'll take a first baseman or, first base util somewhere else. And I'll go like Buxton, like that. I could see that and a few shares of Jeffers being left on the board. Castro at 48.35, expensive for being Willie Castro. I like him a lot better when he's more anonymous down toward the bottom of a lineup, but he's been good. 265, 356, 435 this year, a 330 XWO, a 124 WRC plus, 9 homers, 8 steals. Really strong season out of Willie. Carlos Correa, 45.6% hard hit, 6.2% barrels on the year, 7 home runs, 264, 304, 389. Underwhelming overall slash line, but a 323 XWOB under the covers is at least stable around the average. He's got a little bit more to give if he finds a few barrels along the way. Low strikeout, fairly low walk, a lot of well-struck balls in play, if nothing else. Had a little bit of an injury scare with a twisted ankle at second base the other day, but seems like he's okay. Ty France at 41.32, mix and match quality player, mediocre season so far. Harrison Bader at 39.33, 11 home runs, 8 steals. We've seen stretches like this from Harrison Bader before. He's always been capable of putting up decent numbers. Mostly overall just another outfielder, but gets the bump from being in a Coors Field lineup at a cheap price, 39.33, cheaper on DraftKings. Speaking of cheap on DraftKings, Royce Lewis for only 3,600 is silly. I know he's slashing 216, 281, 302, and I just don't care. 2 home runs and 153 chances, but a 10.2% barrel, 42.4% hard hits. For that price, if I can find the guy who hit 16 home runs and 325 chances with a 219 ISO just last year, the guy who went 309, 372, 548 with a 240 ISO and 15 home runs and 239 chances 2 years ago, I will take that shot every time. 3,000 on FanDuel also works. Brooks Lee, mix and match quality. Another guy at 4,000, oddly down toward the bottom of the lineup here. Maybe a slight tax. It's not like he's expensive for being at Coors Field, but it's maybe a little expensive for being Brooks Lee. 257, 290, 379, and 85 WRC plus and 8 home runs. Christian Vasquez is a spot filler at catcher at the absolute best, but again, a little bump from Coors Field. On the Rockies side, they're pulling nearly a 5 total that should not be ignored. They have a lot of strikeout. They have a lot of problems in this lineup, but there's very true power upside if nothing else. Doesn't typically lead to a lot of crazy 10, 12 run days. Typically you'll get 4 to 5 runs with a homer or 2 and mediocre performance otherwise. But at Coors Field, there's a little upside. Against Chris Paddock, there's a little bit of upside. They'll be the lower owned of these two teams. Freeman at 45.33 is very playable considering that strong slash line, the 124 WRC plus over 188 chances. Light hitter, but low strikeout, high walk, gets on base, good table setter. Mickey Moniak is still only 3,900 at Coors Field. That's a mistake. Take advantage of that. 35 on FanDuel is much more correct. Moniak has 13 home runs and 248 plate appearances. He's got a 261 ISO, a 112 WRC plus, 12.3% barrels. There's nothing not to like about Mickey Moniak. He is just good. 4,200, 3,500 for Jordan Beck. DraftKings got these prices wrong for everyone on the Rockies. Every single player on the Rockies, maybe outside of Tyler Freeman, is a little bit too cheap on DraftKings. Just that top 5 is only 3,900 apiece. 3,920, so 4,000. But again, Coors Field, Chris Paddock. I would probably consider doing this. And that gets me to 3,720. So I'm paying 3,800 a man for a 5-man that includes a surging Mickey Moniak, an interesting Jordan Beck, Ryan McMahon being Ryan McMahon, Ezequiel Tovar back in the lineup, and Michael Talia. A very, very real power bat. That's an appealing 5-man that will be lower owned than basically any combination of twins you can put together. And you can afford premium pitching, premium bats on the other side. It's not as generous on FanDuel, right? If we go through like those, like that maybe for a 4-man, 3,400 a piece. There's no discount really there. DraftKings, they're cheap. Beck An 11.5% barrel, 41.3% hard hits. McMahon, nearly a 12% barrel, 48% hard hits. Terrible as far as the slash line goes, 212, 308, 376. For a Coors Field hitter, he ought to be better than that, but he's Ryan McMahon. He's just not. But 13 home runs, there is power there. There are batted ball events of significant quality there. There's also a ton of strikeouts, but also a fair amount of walks. Tovar, just 138 mediocre plate appearances this year, but let's remember, Tovar hit 26 home runs last year in 695 chances. Had a 200 ISO. Just a 95 WRC plus. Tells you some of the downside. Swings and misses more than basically anybody in baseball. 28.8% strikeouts and an aggressively high whiff rate last year. But he has talent for 3,200 at shortstop on DraftKings. Talia, 10.5% barrels, 42.6% hard hits. Down hard from those numbers last year. 10 home runs in 305 chances, just a 203, 272, 370 slash line. Got demoted to AAA for a minute. The power is real against a guy who's at least allowing a lot of contact and a fair amount of premium contact. Talia is very much in play. Jankiel Fernandez, high-end rookie for them. 296, 321, 370 over 28 chances. Austin Nola's a mix-and-match catcher. Ryan Ritter hasn't given us much over 106 chances. Has a little minor league pedigree, but no barrels so far in the show. Twins bats, Rockies bats. Do yourself a favor. Don't play either of these pitchers. All right. Cards with Palante. As we talked about at the beginning of the show, Palante is easily capable of giving you 6 clean to clean-ish, tidy innings, but he's not going to come with a lot of strikeout. And he's not going to come with a lot of strikeout against this Diamondbacks team. And there's a fair amount of visible downside because they can exploit what he does not do well. 4.49 ERA, a 3.76 xFIP shows the quality a little bit. Just 15.1% strikeouts, 7.5% walks. He's excellent at keeping the ball down, which is why I say that he's capable of keeping a team off the board a little bit. And the major impact that he has is in the home run column here. Even Corbin Carroll at just a 7.79. Gino in the lineup, 7.35. If you weren't watching, Gino was up at the plate and took a 90-something mile-an-hour pitch off of directly his pinky finger, and his pinky went like back like that and like looked like it stretched back over his thumb. I thought we were going to lose Gino for about 6 weeks, but back in the lineup day one. Dude's a gamer. 5,300, 3,600 for Gino, 31 home runs and 391 plate appearances, a 319 ISO, purely just one of the best power bats in baseball, full stop. And even he is at a 7.35 in the home run model because Palante is at a negative 1.3 degree average launch angle. 1.1 last year, allowed just a 1.57% home run rate last year. Negative 11.5 as a reliever 2 years ago is a different story altogether. Even with that, though, he's allowing a 3.29% home run rate. So when he's made mistakes, they've been loud mistakes. So it's not impossible. It's just less likely than it might otherwise be for these Diamondbacks today, as far as the big day, as far as the big home run event. Palante's 77, he's 78. He's a mix and match guy. You need other guys to fail more often than not if you're going to get there with Palante. He's probably more playable on DraftKings as a combination pitcher. Brandon Pfaadt at 77.83, 19.5% strikeouts, just a 5.3% walk. It's not an appealing strikeout rate, but it's not a bad strikeout to walk. 5.16 ERA, but a 3.99 xFIP. Just 9.5% swinging, 25% CSW, a 1.31 whip. A lot of problems there. The most problematic is the 13.1% barrel, the 49.4% hard hit, the 92.2 miles an hour of exit velo, all of which are ludicrously above our emergency thresholds. Very, very lucky to be at a sub 4% home run rate, but that is a very high home run rate. Cards bats in play, Diamondbacks bats in play. Pfaadt, mix and match worthy maybe. More appealing than Palante. He's going up against the lower end of these two lineups, but you could probably get away with just playing bats in this one out in the desert. Brendan Donovan at 39, 3,000, 4 positions on FanDuel, just second base on DraftKings, but that's where you would put him more often than not. Solid slash line, good run creator, good ability to get to first base via that 367 on base over 388 chances this year. A very good correlated scoring option, if nothing else. 8 home runs, moderate hitter otherwise. 9.1% barrels is a weird little outlier for him. That's up from 5.5 last year, 5.8 the year before. It's not like it's delivered any additional power, really. It's at least interesting. Ivan Herrera, 45-31, 8 home runs, tremendous slash line over 175 chances, really fulfilling his potential now that he's finally getting a regular chance, or regular-ish when he's available. Alec Burleson at 37-29, a solid 316 chances this year, 11 home runs on the board. A 354 xWOB under the covers is appealing, 125 WRC plus. In the next spot, Wilson Contreras, 3,900, 3,200, 12 home runs. A 371 xWOB is very appealing. 13.9% barrels, 46.9% hard hits, just a 173 ISO. We're going to lean toward the xWOB. We're going to lean toward the career history for a formerly very high-end catcher who doesn't quite provide as much value as a first baseman, but he's cheap now. So that's kind of evened out at 3,900. If he was at like 45 or whatever he was previously, that becomes more problematic. FanDuel, it doesn't matter. It's the same position anyway. Nolan Gorman at 35-28. I prefer him at second base because it's a thumper to put at second base, but I'll take him at third. 11.5% barrels, 43.5% hard hits, 9 home runs in 226 chances, a 189 ISO. He's one of the better power bats on this team. He also strikes out like crazy. Maybe that's not as big a problem against Fott. Between the two factors, I'll take Gorman's contact upside against the contact that Fott's allowed rather than Gorman's strikeout downside against the limited strikeout nature of Brandon Fott on most days. Nolan Arenado is just completely broken, and none of this is surprising about his bad performance this year. He's just not there anymore. Mason Wynn at 36-29 is a mix and match shortstop. Pedro Pajes and Victor Scott are low-quality options for cheap pricing at the bottom of the lineup. Carroll at 6,000, 4,000, 21 homers, 11 steals, a mediocre slash line overall, 138 WRC plus. We saw a slower first half from him last year, and then he just surged in the second half. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see him make a big push for average on base as the second half goes on. He's tremendous even if he doesn't hit for average. That's why he's so high priced. Geraldo Perdomo is a very good correlated scoring option, 370 on base, a 122 WRC plus. Nocatel Marte in the lineup. Lourdes Gurriel at 4,000, 2,900, mix and match quality outfielder, a little bit better than just another outfielder, especially at an affordable price, but hasn't given us a ton this year either. 98 WRC play. He's just under the mark on like every one of these stats, but he's very playable and people probably work around him more often than they should. Josh Naylor at 44-34, solid bat, excellent slash line, gets on base a ton, creates runs at a 126 clip, 11 homers, 11 steals. He's been tremendous this year. Already talked about Gino, one of the best power bats in the game. He had like a burp sitting like right here in like halfway up. That's why I just hiccup and why I keep like swallowing. If it comes up, I'm going to burp it right into the microphone. 2,000, 2,200 for Adrian Del Castillo here. $26 home runs in the minors last year. In triple A. 16.9% strikeouts against 11.6% walks, a 291 ISO, 312, 399, 603. That's a monster season. Made 87 plate appearances in the show last year. Was pretty decent. Forgot about that. Over 87 chances last year. Hit 4 home runs, 313, 368, 525 with a 213 ISO and a 146 WRC plus. Looking at his minor league numbers, all of that kind of checks out. Where you have to play catchers, that's a dead min price catcher. Even if you don't go to the Diamondbacks at nearly a 5-run total, one of the highest totals on the board overall against Andre Palante, maybe keep Adrian Del Castillo in mind as a just one-off catcher because that kid's got talent. Glad we discovered that. Blaze Alexander at 22-23, mix and match quality infielder. Alec Thomas, Jose Herrera in the lineup. Thomas, a little bit of appeal, but only an 84 WRC plus. Every now and then you get some extra base hit upside out of him. You get a little home run, stolen base upside, but in 281 chances, he really hasn't delivered this year. And Herrera is sub Mendoza in 159 plate appearances. That's interesting. I like that as just a bolt-on part for this. So like, let's say we're playing on DraftKings. We'll grab him. We'll obviously grab Carroll and Gino and Naylor. And then you can take any one of an affordable Perdomo, Gurriel. You get it cheaper going down this way. I'm at 44.25 for those 4. So I can do whatever. And then if you wanted to do something crazy like work Blaze Alexander in there, that gets you down sub 4,000. Alexander can hit a little bit. He had a decent minor league track. 241 plate appearances this year. He's 26, so he's a little bit miscast at AAA, but he's slashing against the younger kids. He's slashing 284, 413, 479 with a 196 ISO and 8 home runs in 241 plate appearances. In 406 plate appearances back in 2022, when he was more appropriately aged for AA, AAA, he hit 20 homers, stole 10 bags, 301, 389, 540, 122 WRC plus. Overall, since I say it about other guys, it's probably fair to call him a quad A player. But when I can get him for 2,200 at second base, on a day where there's no Ketel Marte to skip over, do that. Is it a straight line? No, it's those four and Corbin Carroll. So Carroll, Naylor, Suarez, and then the two younger cheap players gets you to 39.80, 4,000 a man for a Diamondback stack to fight Andre Pallante here. I like it. That is very doable. Diamondbacks bats, Cardinals bats, Brandon Pfaadt, Andre Pallante. On DraftKings, I think you could safely call it a four corners game. Either pitcher is loosely playable. The pitching is less appealing on the FanDuel slate. On that side, I lean a little bit more bats. One of the more interesting pitchers of the day is on deck in this one. Actually, a pair of interesting pitchers in this one, really. Hometown lineup is in. Visitors not yet. Did I do that? I did. As I was saying it, too. Hey, look, first day back after the break. We're working out the kinks. 359 implied total for the Astros, just a 4 for the Mariners. You can see the pitching quality kind of in those Vegas totals. Luis Castillo at 85-88 has a 20 and change percent strikeout rate, a 3.41 ERA, but a concerning 4.17 xFIP. He's lost a little bit this year. He's allowed too many barrels, 11.2% barrels, 45% hard hits, 90.1 miles an hour of exit velo. Downright lucky to be at a 2.65% home run rate. That is where some of the difference between the ERA and the xFIP probably comes from, is that he's gotten his life saved a little bit on some of those hard hit balls. 11.4% swinging strikes still, capable of inducing swinging strikes, but these Astros don't give away too many. Ignore this 26.5. That's obviously pushed way up by the 71.4 there. For the guys with fair samples, the true number is 18.8%. Right? This Astros team doesn't strike out a lot. Maybe Taylor Trammell will continue to strike out a lot. Maybe Bryce Matthews will continue to strike out a lot, but it's not going to be quite that high. And everybody else in the lineup, with the exception of Christian Walker and Cam Smith, is very challenging, very difficult to strike out. 85 is a little high for Castillo. 88 on FanDuel. He's very playable. Again, he was near the top of the board, right there. But the other guy rates out a little bit better, and he's a little bit cheaper on both sides. Arguably going up against the better target between these two. Yeah, they come in at a higher total, but they've got a higher believable strikeout rate at 24.5%. Everybody with at least a moderate sample, and that's the average, excuse me. That stretch of hitters, the guys with more than 200 plate appearances are at a 23% strikeout rate, and then even their high-quality bats up toward the top, that's a 22.8% strikeout rate. And that includes the 16.9 on J.P. Crawford. Their true power bats all strike out. Most of them draw walks. Some of them are just ridiculous, like Cal Raleigh with his 38 home runs at the break. But Walter's been pitching well this year. Over 7 starts, 3.98 ERA, but a 2.91 xFIP, 24.2% strikeouts, 1.2% walks. That is a sparkling strikeout to walk ratio. Misses bats effectively, 11.9% swinging strikes, has not been allowing barrels. Exit velo is perfectly fine. That's spectacular, actually, to be at 86 miles an hour of exit velo on average. Makes me less concerned about nearly a 40% hard hit. The 4.85% home runs is probably an outlier given all of this. That's a couple mistakes that got over the wall. There's nothing about this that would lead to that. So that's just small sample in 40 and 2/3. Last time out went 6, allowed 2 earned runs, struck out 7, 2 home runs allowed. He's given up a home run in every one of his games except the first one back on May 20th against Tampa Bay at Tampa Bay. So you do have that in mind when we talk about these home runs. But again, none of that comes from visible things. Those are just mistakes from a young pitcher, I think. a 9 strikeout game against the Twins, 7 strikeouts against the Guardians. Bumpy one at Coors Field. Like I said earlier, he had the bad start at Coors for 5 runs, and he had a bad day against the Angels at LA for 7 earned runs. Every other start, he's allowed 2 runs or fewer. That's an interesting pitcher, and he's affordable, especially on DK at 77. But the way this FanDuel slate is structured, 85 for him is an asset. That is an important pitcher on this slate. Astros bats target some Luis Castillo and some of the visible downside around those contact numbers. Not out of play for sure. Isaac Paredes at 39, 31. I'm not going to look it up. I'm going to guess this is a bad ballpark for Paredes' home run upside, just because it's a bad ballpark in general for hitting. 19 home runs on the year from him, but a 357 on base percentage, a 332 xWOB, a 133 WRC plus, low strikeout, high walk. He's doing interesting things beyond the home runs. Cam Smith at 37-28 gets on base at a 347 clip, having a strong year as far as the slash line goes, creating runs at a 117 pace, hits the ball fairly hard, just a decent amount of strikeout, but he's capable of drawing a walk. Fairly priced as a correlated scoring option ahead of Jose Altuve, Christian Walker, some of the quality in this lineup. Altuve, 277, 336, 465, a 121 WRC plus, 17 home runs now. Remember when we were concerned for a minute about Jose Altuve back at the beginning of the year? Those concerns are gone. This is just a good Jose Altuve season now. Christian Walker's the guy to maybe be concerned about. 12 homers, just a 229, 286, 374 slash line, 85 WRC plus. Still making good contact when he happens to connect, though. He's only 3,400 now, 2,900 on FanDuel. If you're going to this team, take advantage of those low prices. That is a player that would not surprise me at all to have a strong second half. Caratini, 32-28. Very, very playable. We've been talking about him since he landed in the lineup. He's got the first base eligibility, so you can play him and Diaz together on either site. 10 home runs for Caratini. Hits the ball very hard, 9.5% barrels, 40% hard hits. Just fulfilling exactly what we said when he first entered a more regular role for this team, that he hits the ball hard, that he could come through with low-owned home run upside, high-quality plate appearances for cheap prices, and low ownership, and he's done that all year. 34-27 for Jainer Diaz. Has 13 home runs on the year, just an 89 WRC plus, but an appealing 339 xWOBA, 9.2% barrels, 43.5% hard hits. Lot of quality the last 2 seasons. Lot to like in that bat when you can get him as cheap as he is. Taylor Trammell, mix and match quality outfielder, coming up through the was it the Mariners system? He was on the Mariners at one point. He's been here for a minute. Coming mostly through the Mariners system. Was originally a Red all the way back in 2016 in rookie ball as an 18-year-old. Peaked at 21 home runs, 17 steals back in 2023 as a 25-year-old. So another guy who's probably more a quad A player now. 262 ISO, 268, 395, 30 that year. Follow that up was in AAA for the Yanks in his age 26 season. 407 plate appearances, 18 homers, 20 steals. Solid as far as the potential on the right, if you catch him on the right day for a cheap price to create a DFS scoring event. Overall, not a great player. Mauricio Dubon, mix and match quality at the absolute best, and Bryce Matthews should be able to give you a little something for a cheap price. In 325 AAA plate appearances this year as a 23-year-old, he's got 10 home runs and 25 steals, a 283, 400, 476 slash line, and a 193 ISO. He's also got a AAA strikeout rate of 30.2%, 31.4 last year across the minor leagues. Walks a lot, though, 15.4% this year, 13.4 last year. So maybe some hidden talent for 2,400 at second base, 2,200 at shortstop down there. The Mariners lineup, if you're choosing to attack Brandon Walter, J.P. Crawford's an excellent correlated scoring option. 391 on base now, over 409 plate appearances. Dude just gets to first base. 133 WRC plus on the season. He's hit 7 homers, 5 stolen bases. He's an interesting player in a lot of ways. Julio Rodriguez, another player I'm expecting a big second half from. Not a ton to really indicate that here, but we're also not that far off of the marks from previous seasons. 252, 313, 417. He's just been all right. Probably not deserving of the All-Star nod. Cal Raleigh was definitely deserving. 38 homers, a 375 ISO, a 178 WRC plus. He's just ridiculous. Randy Rosarena was really coming on before the break. 17 home runs now in 412 plate appearances. He's maintained the premium contact throughout most of the season, but caught a nice little wave of power there to push these numbers up. 251, 357, 463. He was getting on base all season long. He's up to a 211 ISO, 137 WRC plus. Welcome back, Randy Arozarena. A really interesting bat. 2,300 on both sides for Donovan Solano. Solano is a capable line drive hitter, a guy who can put the ball in play, keep the lineup moving, maybe drive a guy in. Not an appealing individual hitter. Needs some guys on base to really reach his potential. Mitch Garver's got some power from the catcher spot, 9.2% barrels, 46.9% hard hits, 5 homers in 171 chances, and a little bit of track record for hitting for more reliable power. Dylan Moore barreled a lot of balls early in the year. Came away with 9 home runs. Now that we're at 186 plate appearances, he is normalized back down to pretty bad numbers overall, 92 WRC plus. Cole Young, Ben Williamson have given us very little so far this season. Both guys hitting in the 250s if you're a fan of batting average, 305, 294 on base, 88 and 79 WRC plus marks, and glaringly bad xWOBA marks under the covers tell us they're not even as good as those 250 averages. That's why we don't care about batting average. Brendan Walter for the cheaper prices. Luis Castillo. Mariners bats, Astros bats. And this game's not on the board. Rounding things out, Brewers and the Dodgers. Gonna try and get through this one as quick as possible because we are at 6:10. Quinn Priester went through a little stretch of finding some quality. He was a kid with a decent pedigree in the Pirates system a few years ago. So far, hasn't flashed a ton at the major league level, but he is pitching to a 3.55 ERA in 12 starts. 3.84 xFIP is a little bit higher, but still not bad. Sub 4. 18.8% strikeouts against 8.6% walks, a fair amount of hard hit and exit velo, but a solid 4.4 degree average launch. He's also capable of keeping the ball down on the right day. I just don't love throwing him into the Dodgers when they're pulling nearly a 5-run total, the second highest on the entire slate against him. Really challenged to get to that spot. So, playable, but not that appealing. 82 is cheap. If I need to get away, like if I'm building a lineup and I've got $8,500 Brandon Walter in it, and there's a ridiculous upgrade that 300 can buy me in that lineup, in one lineup across a handful on FanDuel, sure, I would go Quinn Priester at 82. Same thing at 79, but he's more a replacement part. He's more a work him in around the edges kind of a piece, then I think he really has actual appeal here against the pretty low strikeout, pretty overwhelmingly talented Dodgers. And then 5 innings of Tyler Glasnow, 5 and change of Tyler Glasnow. In 6 starts, 23 innings this year, he's got a 28.9% strikeout, way too many walks, 3.52 ERA, 4.02 xFIP, obviously missed some time. 5 innings in his return to form against this Brewers team at Milwaukee, faced 20 hitters, 5 strikeouts, 3 walks, 1 run that was not earned, 2 hits. I will take the upside for a continuation of that and a little bit of additional improvement. Don't know about what he did over the break, but again, to remind, it was a 4-day break. It's not like we've had a major layoff here, and he probably got some throwing in. So I would expect 5 for sure, assuming the 5 go well. And then it wouldn't stun me if he came back out for the 6th, but he is a fragile player. So there's a little bit of visible downside to that. Greatly prefer the 8,000 on DraftKings, would play the 96 on FanDuel. Brewers against all that, less appealing than some other Brewers days. They're a mid-board type team most of the time, though. Bryce Turang at 41-31, mix and match quality, 17 stolen bases, 345 on base, a 104 WRC plus, a decent enough correlated score with a little bit of bonus potential from stolen bases, the odd home run here and there, a double that scores some runs. William Contreras, 3,000, still catcher eligible, unlike his brother. 245, 351, 347. Unfortunately, between the two, he's been the underwhelming Contreras for most of the season. Would love to get the other guy's catcher bat back. He's playable, and he's in a great lineup spot, and he's better than his numbers have been this year. Jackson Churio at 45, 35, 16 homers, 16 steals, an underwhelming 297 on base, a 309 xWOBA, just a 197 ISO, 110 WRC plus, though, and a lot to like about when he really gets going. Still a very young player. Christian Yelich for 46, 36, 19 homers, 14 steals. Very solid Christian Yelich-like season. Not really finding a ton of barrels, has lost a little bit in hard hit, but still manages to deliver basically all the time. Oh, wait, I was on the wrong line. Yeah, all right, that's what I thought. I surprised myself there when I was seeing these. 8.6, 46.1. That's right in line with expectations. 19 homers, 14 steals, 259, 339, 458. 124 WRC plus. Andrew Vaughn is on the Brewers now. That's really interesting. 2,700, 2,600. If he is in the lineup, which he probably will be, he's filling in right now for Rhys Hoskins, but he might win that job outright. Andrew Vaughn has talent. Andrew Vaughn was the, I want to say, 3rd overall pick in his draft. Just kind of washed out with the White Sox. But that's interesting. He was on a tear for, I think, 4 games when he first got called up to the Brewers right before the break. Last year in 619 chances, he hit 19 home runs, underwhelming across the board otherwise. 615 plate appearances the year before that. He hit 21 home runs at an okay slash line, a 103 WRC plus, 17 home runs in 555 with a 271, 321, 429, and a 113 WRC plus. None of that is bad. It's not star caliber. It's not what they wanted, but none of that is bad. There was a lot to work with there, and the White Sox just kind of, gave up. That's why they're the White Sox. Brewers, smart organization. Pick them up. I like the upside. I mean, if you need a better indicator, what's better than that? Even in a bad year, 13.5% barrels, 48.4% hard hits. Isaac Collins, Caleb Durbin, and Joey Ortiz are all at best mixers. Between the 3, Caleb Durbin is probably the most appealing given the hit tool, given the on-base skills, although you could say the same thing about Isaac Collins, honestly. 118 WRC plus, 107 WRC plus for those 2 players. Among the bottom 4, the guy I'm most interested in is Jake Bauers. Given the 13.8% barrels, the 46.3% hard hits, 5 home runs, 5 steals, and a little bit of track record for being kind of good. 202, 324, 363 is obviously not where we want him, but I'll take the upside on this for that price. Dodgers bats are self-explanatory among the top few guys. You always just want to get Ohtani, Betts, Freeman in your lineups. Mookie would be the least appealing of those guys. So unfortunately right now for 44 at shortstop, for 32, it's very fairly priced, but he's at a 95 WRC plus now. 244, 315, 381. Mookie Betts went to Japan, never really came back. Freddie Freeman at 43.33 is a little bit oddly priced on DraftKings. Not sure what they're looking for. 297, 365, 476 with a 134 WRC plus this year, a 353 xWOBA. Will Smith, one of the best catcher options on any given slate, a dozen home runs on the year, tremendous slash line over 301 plate appearances. Teoscar Hernandez has major power upside, 14 homers this year, a 205 ISO, 107 WRC plus. Mikey Conforto, 2,900 down here. Lefty bat to throw at the middle of the board, righty at best. 9.5% barrels, 42.6% hard hits, 8 homers in 305 plate appearances. Doesn't really match that quality of contact, nor does the 138 ISO, and definitely the 184, 298, 322 slash line, the 80 WRC plus. People will avoid that when going to Dodgers, and they should not, because Michael Conforto is better than that. He's making better contact than those numbers, has always made better contact than those numbers, is capable of drawing you a walk and giving you an emergency, walk and a run scored 6 points to save a day when he's been bad otherwise. That's a capable bat. Andy Paz, 4,000, 3,000, 17 home runs. Nothing not to like about Andy. Hae-Sung Kim has been good for this team in 119 chances. Don't confuse him with the other Kim with a similar name on the Rays. 2 home runs and 11 stolen bases. A very good slash line. We'll see where it goes. He's carrying just a 296 xWOB under the covers. Doesn't really make good contact, but he's been at least interesting. Fills second base for a cheap price. And then Tommy Edman is also there. 10 home runs on the year. All of that came in an awful hurry. And now he's down to 223, 278, 392. Whatever he was drinking those days out of the LA River probably stopped and is normalized back to Tommy Edman. Glasnow, Dodgers Glasnow, either way. Brewers bats less Quentin Priester than anything else in this game. And really, Brewers bats not that aggressively high on the board. This is your pitching board one last time, guys. Apologies if I missed any questions over the last little bit. We're down to just a handful of people here hanging out as we get crashing toward lock. I get it. Apologies for the long show. I know everybody expects, but I feel like we took our sweet time on that one. Javier says Paddock sucks except when I go against him. It's also the reason he's been better this year. I have to go against him quite a bit. Yeah, it's challenging pitcher. Anytime I roster him, he blows up. Anytime I go against him, he pitches well. I'm kind of with you on that one, Javier. Again, loosely playable if you're inclined to go toward those pitchers. Moniak should be 45, 46. Agree, Monty. He's been just good this year. And he was good, like we've looked at a few times. He was good on the Angels. It's another player. I'm kind of surprised that he's not still a part of that organization. And this is the ideal spot to put him. Former number 1 overall pick. Anyway, Greg, I appreciate that. Greg says no apologies needed for the long show. Yeah, we're not that far beyond our average show length, but obviously we're coming up on lock at 6:18. Let me punch out of this one, guys. Let me get these lineups updated. Let me fix the projection on Johnny Jones so nobody gets too much of him, and we will be off and running for this slate. Good luck out there tonight. Somebody go win something. Share those results when you do at rotoscouts Twitter handle. Discord is free. Don't have to be a subscriber down there. The website is rotoscouts.com. If you've never been here before, everything's under $1 a day for access to anything that hits that site, all these baseball projections included. Go check it out. Subscribe today and get access. And we got football coming up. First preseason football game, 2 weeks away. Crazy. Always sneaks up on me. Anyway, I'm out of here, gang. Back on Monday for shows. Content through the weekend. Back with shows on Monday. Have a great weekend, guys. Go get them.